Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of A Bazaar podcast. As per usual, you'll be able to find us on YouTube, as well as on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or via RSS feed for your podcast listening app of choice. Joining you today will first of all be me, MetallFenix, as well as my co-host, Sixten,
Hello, guys. Hope you're all enjoying still.
and Walter.
This is Hang Glider Walter.
And of course, we are joined by the guest of the week as well, which this week is Jota. Why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself in case they aren't familiar?
Hello, I'm Jota. I started playing Bazaar basically since it came out in closed beta. I've been streaming on and off since then, and in the last months very consistently. I've been enjoying Bazaar a lot. Great game, enjoying still. So yeah, background is more auto betas, played TFT, played Mechabellum a lot, but pretty much only Bazaar right now.
Do you want to let people know where they can find your stream?
Twitch Jota_3N.
All right.
And
Just
as-
wanted to make sure you get that in there.
Yeah, and as per always,
Top of the
it
show.
will it'll also be in the description, so
Of
you
course.
can find it there. We've been asking people lately just because it's kind of a fun warm-up question, but what ended up getting you into the Bazaar in the first place?
I come from Mechabellum, like I said, and I'm on a Mechabellum Discord with for example Time for Miracle,
Yeah.
if you know him, and those kind of players. And they started talking about Bazaar, being like, okay, this is coming out in a few days. Looks interesting. I've never heard of it before. I heard about Reynard making a card game, but I kind of thought it was long gone, right?
Right,
Not ever
right.
coming out. But they talked about it and was like, yeah, sounds like a good game, looks pretty good. And that kind of got me into it.
There you go.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, good shout out. Time for Miracle is another really good streamer. I used to watch him a
He's
lot.
not streaming anymore.
He's not
sadly.
streaming anymore. Okay,
No.
yeah. He used to
stopped
stream
streaming.
a lot
Yes.
during backpack battles and stuff.
Yeah. If you want to watch or hear from Time for Miracle, it's Mechabellum Mag1. He's
there you go.
part of that at the moment, I believe.
Yeah.
Right, guys, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys enjoy flying?
Yeah, I do.
All right, so Yoda, can you? So I guess, what have you been playing since the new patch? Is it been stealth mostly, or?
I mean, I was mostly a Mac main last season. Mac is my most played hero. I enjoy him a lot. So I have been playing some Mac, but mostly, obviously, still. She got the brand new toys. She's a bit broken, so lots of her builds just work because she's maybe a bit too strong. But yeah, she's a lot of fun. Playing lots of stealth. Mac second. Don't really care about the rest of the heroes at the moment. But yeah.
How have you found the Mac expansion cards? I know I was really curious. I haven't gotten to play Mac yet. I've played only Stell and a little pig. And I was really curious to try Atmospheric Sampler. It's a card that I really think is super good. How was your experience with that?
I think it's very good that the expansion doesn't introduce too many new archetypes to Mac. It's not something completely new, but the items just work with what you had before.
Yeah, it's gap
Focus
fillers.
back onto reagents and transforming feels really good to play. I think Sampler is a sleeper broken item that once people get to use it more and know the spots where it's good in, will become a problem like Pendulum.
Yeah,
But
that was my feeling as well. That's why I
Yeah.
asked. Yeah, I feel like that one's super strong.
The biggest reason why it's actually as strong is because it's proccing on enchanted items and flying, but no one cares about the flying part, or not really. But since you get a shiny reagent as well, you can very easily have 3 second, 4 second shinies that charge whatever else you want.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, are you sure you don't care about the flying? Because I think one of the best ways to utilize it is with shiny flying potion,
Yeah,
and that
but
you make
it's
your
an
whole
enchanted
board.
item, right? You don't really care about like making things flying. It's not like, hey, I want to like play an Orly or play the flying potion to make things flying for this to work. It's more like my carry items enchanted. Now I just like roll reagents, like shiny reagents, to get like any kind of activation, and that's what I want to do. It's
Yeah,
not
but
like,
it's good
hey,
to
I
have
want to
them
fly,
be.
but more like I want to charge.
I see what you're saying, but it's like if everything is flying, isn't it just more charges?
Uh, if everything is enchanted, it's the same, right? I don't know. Like,
Yes, but that's hard.
no, it's
It's
not
hard
really
to have
hard.
your whole.
It's not that hard on Mac, especially since this one was
Fair enough.
like
Just
reagents
if
as
you're
well.
playing for exactly that you're right, that's
Yeah,
definitely possible.
I believe also, correct me if I'm wrong, but they added more catalyst generators to Mac.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. You can definitely get lots of enchanted items. I'm just saying that like there's a way to do this board where it's like you play it more like Piggle's board, and then there's a way to do this board where you play it more like Pendulum, right? Where you're
Yeah.
focusing all your charges. And I think that both have spots where they can exist.
Yeah. That's a good like good view on it. That's good.
Yeah, and I put it on the screen for people who aren't familiar since it just got added, but it's a Mac item that reads when you use an enchanted or flying item, charge an enchanted or flying item. And it also makes another item start flying at the start of the combat.
Yeah, and it also gives you crucially, it's a gold starting and it gives you gold reagents. So it gives you access to the shiny reagent and the higher tier reagents, which are really good to roll. So that's to me part of what makes it really so like Piggle's board, which is like maybe the most similar card, you really don't like to play it when it's on gold very often. But if Pickle's board was also a fishing rod that gave you a gold toy every day, then there's really much less opportunity cost to hold it in your bag waiting for the diamond upgrade. So I think it's kind of like a similar dynamic where you're like holding you can hold it at gold, use it to set up your like end game board by building up reagents, and then when you get your level 13 or whatever, it goes to diamond, it goes on your board, you've transformed your reagents into hopefully useful items, and then that's your like fast board, hopefully, to make up for Mac's weakness of being slow.
I kind of want to add on the like new items. I think flying potion is kind of underrated at the moment. Like flying potion, especially with multicast, can basically be like a 3-second haste your board. And that's really powerful, especially
Yeah,
on Mac.
that's why I shouted out shiny flying potion in particular, because
Yeah.
3 second cooldown I think is just having a 3 second item on Mac is like that's important.
Yeah.
All right, so I assume all of us other three have also been playing a lot of mostly Stell. Or Walter, you
Well,
maybe have tried
Walter, you've
Pig.
definitely played some Pig too, right?
Yeah, I played some Pig in the tournament, but I played one game of Pig since the patch, not including the tournament, and then I played 2 games of Pig in the tournament, and every other game has been Stell, which has probably been like
Okay, I haven't
20,
really
20 games or something, maybe.
picked your brain much on what's your like go-to lines on Style. How do you like playing her?
I mean, I loved like the main like aggro line. Like I love like Tempo King. Like my very first game in the tournament, it was just like the smoothest like Cara turret into like, all right, that's starting to like lose its luster, immediately find Dagger Wing 11-1. Or sorry, 10-1. You know, like a
Right.
game like that.
Yeah.
And it could have been like Vortex Cannon too, like, and it could have been Swallowtail. That's the one, right? The charging one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could have been Swallowtail too. Like, I feel like those. I mean, it could have been Hang Glider too. Hang Glider is a little
Yeah.
bit different of a setup, but when I get like the aggro start and I'm winning, I find her extremely easy to close the game with if you know like the dually tempo play style. It's
Yeah, I
very
think
similar to dually when you're winning. It's like playing
Mm.
weaponized core a bit.
for me, that's I think her strongest line currently. I also do have success with the start stop balloon engine stuff, especially if I get a parachute. I think that item is super strong in the mid game, and then if you get a enchant on it, you can even just go 10 wins with parachute alone. So, but aerial turret Karakara is like my favorite line currently. It's also super fun to play because I enjoy, for example, on Dooley the old pulse rifle, and aerial turret takes me back to those days of just an item
Yeah,
going
it's
crazy.
it's weenie aggro, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
small weapon aggro, or like I mean it's a medium weapon technically, but I mean small in like the sense of like I'm hitting a lot with a low damage item, and that's just a fun style. I think it's just satisfying to have your cards go fast in the Bazaar. That's just part of the appeal of Dually and Stell generally. Stell, like, your cards go crazy when you have like shiny paper airplanes and stuff. You can have you can have cards
Yeah,
going absolutely nuts.
and I also like how it makes every fight into a race because the way turret works, is that it's ramping up. So it's like a lot of fights are super fun for me because there's a lot of stuff happening. Like it isn't just waiting for this 10-second item to hit the opponent once. It's like a lot of activations, a lot of stuff going on, and then if you're up against a super aggressive burn build, you're like scared for your life. Is the turret gonna get out 1 second in time? So yeah, I'm a big fan of that line. And then I also want to give a shout out, and this is MetallFenix also definitely helped open the eyes, like tethers. I don't know if you guys
Yeah.
have played with that item a ton, but that item is like having shield, like 50 shield in the early game is so powerful, especially in like the Stell mirror. Just having that defense line, and then also just stop as an effect is. I know a lot of people aren't super high on stopping, as in the effect itself isn't as strong as flying, but if you have just a bit of stopping on like day 1 or day 2, you're able to farm the orbital polishers, and you're able to get so much activations from your balloon engines and your kites that, yeah, I think that more defensive line is also super strong. And
I
Metal, you can
think
talk a bit more about it.
the big thing for me is the fact that I find balloon engine and the aerial turret to in practice be very interchangeable because they want you to do effectively the same thing, which is have the balloon engine or the aerial turret represent kind of almost your entire damage output. And then I think in the early game, what makes Stell so exceptionally powerful is that she actually has a lot of utility, like defensive options that are really good. It brings me back to like the old days of Vanessa when like seashell used to be a extremely premium item. Like seashell and seaweed were very above average. And nowadays that's very much not the case. They've kind of mostly suffered from the repeated like increases of the base cooldowns since they have to activate to do their effects. But Stell is a little bit like that with um, kite or tethers, as they are both kind of unrestricted in the sense that as long as you just have starting or stopping, you get to stack a lot of defenses for free. But she has these two very powerful options for your damage to go with it that are both capable of, if you give them time to do it, just single-handedly being that entire damage output. And it just works so well together with each other. That's how I've been mostly playing my early games, and it just feels like it's so tough to beat. I think the only thing that I consistently lose to on like day 1, day 2 would be something like candles on Mac, since it can just get such aggressive burn that it overpowers defensive lines before you have time to get like a turret online. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Stell day 1 is usually not gonna stack. Even if they have balloon engine, they're not really stacking that effectively usually. So the shield is super. I agree with you. I really like lines that are like well, my kill card, like my win con, is not really taking up the whole board. So I'll just slap down this one shield card, and it gives you insane utility versus burn. And it's really good for racing because if they have, usually you get a better like rate for board slots on shield than you do on red damage. So if your opponent is like the same build as you, but they just have a bunch of like dumb weapons that are not doing anything in the slots where you have tethers or whatever, then you're usually going to come out on top because of like the rate on those cards as shield is just better than the red damage rate. So it's pretty nice.
I posted a Stell early game guide as a video, and there I talk about basically both aerial turret as well as kite and balloon engine all kind of give you inevitability in fights. Like they're all basically saying if you just live long enough and let this item cook, you probably outscale most things. And with that in mind, it just makes sense to build up defenses, right? Like if you have an item that just eventually will just fire on all cylinders, whether through a bunch of regen or stacking burn, or in turret you just go Super Saiyan mode. For me, that just means that what I want to solve now is just make sure I don't get aggro down, and that's why stuff like tethers, gold chocolate bars. I'm also a big fan of what's it called? There's like the other shield item that is an early game item.
Birdcage.
Yeah, birdcage, exactly. Yeah. There are like anything that just makes me not just die to a crit from a grenade or whatever is super strong.
Whereas, I also think
go on.
There's like an interesting parity in the early game, typically, where there tends to be flat damage, which is the fastest, and then there tends to be defenses, which usually beat flat damage because flat damage tends to run out of gas in some capacity, and then you tend to have scaling damage, which usually beats defenses because damage usually scales more aggressively than defenses. And then you have this like rock, paper, scissor thing, and anything that breaks that parity by being a scaling comp that doesn't lose to aggro has historically been very powerful. And we talked just before the show about another example of that, which I think is Bushel Golf Club's pig is like the perfect analogy for the style of Stell that you can play with the turret as well, where it's like
defensive scaling with inevitability in the clubs, and it's like
and
Bushel
it's just so hard for people to answer both when it doesn't really work to rush, but you also can't really out tank it.
Yeah, so I was gonna say a very common mistake I see from a ton of other Stell ghosts in the early game is that you have to understand that aerial turret essentially says that for the first few days, I can be all the damage you could possibly need. And then people put a bunch of other weapons on their board, like they just have a bunch of weapons, which makes the aerial turret, for example, less consistent because maybe the flying from the Karkara lands on the rocket drone instead. So you already have solid damage with the aerial turret Karkara. So why then add more weapons to the board? Like that doesn't improve your odds of like winning because the aerial turret that wins you the game still takes time. So that is just something, if anyone is listening and wants to learn Stell, I would say it is better to go with a hybrid where you have inevitability in the form of a slower item and then a lot more defenses than to just try and both play the inevitability and like extra damage, I think, because then you have weaknesses and your strength is like a bit overkill. And also there is another Stell line in the early game that is chicken cannon based, where you have a chicken cannon that then scales the shield on like 2 shield items. And the issue I have there is mostly a Mac thing because chicken cannon is really good into other styles. Like the scaling on that with like a right-hander is impossible. Like you're beating aerial turret, you're beating balloon engine, anything. But dude, you cannot beat poison. Like you just lose to poison, right? So I feel like Mac is fairly represented currently. I would say he's maybe the third or fourth most common hero I face. And when that is the case, where you just hard lose to a single hero, I just don't know how I can justify going for that line. I'm curious what you guys, if any of
I
you have
mainly
played Chicken Cannon.
think so. On the test server, we played with a few different versions of Chicken Cannon, where the main difference was the cooldown of the item. And I do think it's one of those where, like, even now, it's not a bad line, but when it's as slow as it is currently, it just feels like it's unlikely to ever be the best thing you can do. And I think in a world where there were much greater like risk of missing on day one, I'd maybe be willing to hedge the stuff that I find less powerful, like chicken cannon. But in practice, if I'm only looking for um, like kite, free fall, balloon, tethers, aerial turret, and karakara, they are all mediums, and two of them are weapons. And I think Stell has like 9 bronze starting weapons, and let me double check. Stell bronze starting mediums is 13. So
Yeah.
when you're looking at 9 and then 13, it means that if you just focus your day 1 on primarily going for Isla and Mittel and so both the only weapons and the no weapons and then the medium items, those are usually my 3 primary shops on day 1. I've found that you can like pretty consistently get like one of the things that you're looking for. And then on day 2 is usually when I start going to like Andy and small shops and stuff to find the support pieces that work with whichever line I ended up finding on day 1, so that I know if I'm looking for like uh more headset stuff or more like gyro stuff or a bit of both, depending.
And
Can
adding
I
to
just
that,
jump in because I
okay,
think
go
I
ahead.
played this line the chicken cannon line a couple times in the
Yeah,
early
yeah.
game, and I felt like the Mac thing is like, to me that's not such a big deal. One thing that is in favor of chicken cannon is that Vanessas on day 1 are much less likely to be poisoned now.
Yeah, for sure.
They're way more likely to be weapons. So that's actually like a point in favor of the cannon. But I will say that like I think the issue is that it's often tough. So like imagine it's day 1, node 1, and you're looking at middle and she has chicken cannon plus drone, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the setup you want in theory. You still then need a way to make your drone flying for this to be good at all. But it's like then you now are not buffing to shields, or you have like a small, like you need a very particular setup for it to be like really strong on day 1, and you
Yeah.
need like a small way to make yourself fly, plus you need 2 shield items.
It gets like
So
I
like
kind of want to
weird
talk about
size
like
issues.
yeah. Sorry, what'd you
the
say, Jota?
the Mac angle is actually super interesting. Like if you play Mac, the start of the patch when it first came out, you basically had to like surrender day 1, day 2 into any style because they were playing like super aggressive, and Mac cannot handle that, right?
Yeah.
But now, since like you also advertise like more of a defensive route, Mac actually has like way more play in the early game.
Yeah.
That's super. Like that's, as a Mac
Well,
player,
that's good.
great.
That's like healthy. That's like healthy as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned, because it's like if you
Yeah.
see that like everyone is playing like I'm just Karakara, we're all playing Stell, bashing our heads into each other, then shield items become amazing on day 1. If the meta is all flat damage weapons with Karakara, then the shield items are crazy.
Yeah,
Like
because
so,
I
For
will
sure.
say I think the like the just Karakara gyro rocket drone type lines are very viable if you're expecting stuff like a lot of Mac, since he is so vulnerable to that. And it's mostly been the fact that, especially when you face so much Stell yourself, that's, I think, would have angled it into those defensive lines, because Stell actually has the tools to out defense aggro Stell players. So you have
yeah,
like
agreed.
the in class counter where I started playing to counter Vanessa because she's always common, and then other Stell players because they were kind of playing like they were Vanessa. So the same, like, quote-unquote anti-aggro style build worked really well, and also into the pig players, since I found that you could outscale with turret usually, whereas he could out defend you if I went for like the full aggro line. So the only place where you're really dropping a lot of EV is into Max specifically. So you end up just kind of saying, well,
only then if they're
if it's
poison,
Mac,
right?
it's
If
Mac.
they're
Yeah.
they still can, like, it's not like Mac is poison day one 100% of the time either. It's not like you're just giving up the matchup completely. Sure, it's like not favorable, but it's not like zero. You know, like
No,
like
I
it's
mean,
yeah.
Mac doesn't have a 100% win rate, but before I was like at the start of the patch when I played Mac, I was also my viewers asking like how do you play the early game as Mac, and I was like, yeah, if you queue into Stell, you have like a 20% win rate, and now since people play like a little more defensively, you maybe get like a 60. That's still like not
I think that
insta win, but
sounds
it's
about
like
right. Yeah.
so much better of a matchup for you that you can actually play into it.
I just want to circle back to what Metal spoke about, how few bronze medium items still has and how high quality most of them are. That makes Lost Crate for random medium on day one insane. Like, not only can it give you the items of your dreams, and there are like 5 or 6 of them, it can also give you the items that provide you with econ. So for example, a toolbox or an early delivery drone is really powerful to just get for free from a node. But then on top of that, since the item pool is so small on especially day 1 and day 2, you can also just get upgrades. Like, you can
you get
grab
the
your
silver
balloon engine.
Kara day one, and it's so over. Like,
and
it's super over. Yeah,
because there are all those 3 things. Like, either you get one of your engines, or you get an econ item, or you get an upgrade. There, like, it's very, very hard to ever whiff. Like, worst case scenario, you get like a chicken cannon and whatever, right? But it's so consistent that node for me has, on all the other heroes, almost always just been, well, except when it was silver item on day 1 that was broken, but I never even thought that the random medium could compare to a skill on average. But Stella's proved me wrong. Like, when you have such a small, tight item pool, like, randomness isn't as detrimental. Like, if most items are good, then it's just like you're going to a vendor that is really good. Like, you're going to a meter, right? And you get to see one item. That's basically what it says, for free. Like, you get to see one item for free, and you can just grab it. Which, that's a really strong node. So
yeah, I'd say honestly on Pig it's pretty good too, for the same reasons that Pig's
that makes
mediums
sense.
are good. But yeah,
But like on
I
Dooley,
agree with
that
you that
is
like the random, like, I mean, Dooley day one mediums are not nearly as
so that's
strong
like my
average
background in
quality.
Dooley, and the skills are really good on Dooley because you have so much multicast. So just want to give that a shout out as well. And then I also wanted to mention something else, which is that like, Stell is really good into PvE fights. Like, with aerial turret, I did it in the tournament. I was able to beat both mosquitoes. Like, I just farmed the day 3 mosquito and the day 6 mosquito just with like health stacking and an aerial turret. And then what that allows you to do is essentially get ahead somewhat on, like, you can go for the more favorable skills. You can get more expected gold. And I think that is because those kind of defensive scaling lines are just really strong into monsters, right? Because
for sure.
the monsters, and it's the same with Mac. Like, Mac has historically been a very good hero into monsters in general because of his insane scaling. So I just want to give a shout out that I think Stell is also very strong as a PvE, what should you call it, like a fighter. If you guys have any more thoughts on that.
Do you buy chocolate on Stell? Like
Yes.
chocolate for 10?
Yes.
If I played it, especially if I played like the aerial turret line, because aerial turret needs, some time to charge up. So buying chocolate just gives you more time, right? Like, you're effectively just like extending the duration of the average fight, which can be the difference between it being 1 second in time or not being in time. But on other Stell lines that are more expensive, it can also be sometimes tough to justify chocolate because you also need to go to shops. Like, if you're in a weaker line and you haven't found like a strong item yet, then I would probably instead go to like a Mittel and try to find a parachute. But if I'm like already strong, I would go just chocolate for
The
sure.
way I usually look at it is I tend to buy chocolate a lot, but the thing that lets me consider not buying chocolate is mainly affected by my start times. So I find that it's when you start to have like, if you have a ornithopter and a silver freefall or something, that's when you're starting to get into the stages where your defenses kicks in pretty quickly, and then you can consider maybe I don't need chocolates that much. And also, when you're playing those lines, if you're going to shops instead of chocolates, a lot of the time what you're hitting is going to be defensive upgrades. And if you're hitting defensive upgrades, that gives you more health than buying chocolates for the same gold. So that's like my cue to potentially not buy chocolates. But both in the early game, when I don't feel like I start up fast enough to not risk potentially dying to aggro, and for the sake of certain of those early PvPs, like the Hoverbike Hooligan, the Mosquito, especially the Flame Juggler. Those are all ones where you just need that little bit extra of a buffer to not die. And especially if you're just on like a aerial turret line and you just run tethers to have like some defense, but you're not primarily a defensive line, then I've been operating on kind of the same principle as Walter always used to tell me on Mac, which is like 1 gold, 1 silver, and then I'm feeling pretty okay, happy, like a 250 extra buffer.
Yeah, and for listeners, just to explain why gold chocolate is so powerful, especially on day 3, is that on day 3 it is effectively a node that says gain, I think it's like maybe 35% or 40% more max health. Like, and that is like 8. So when you go to Finn, you get 5% extra max health and like a bit of regen. So you can think of it like you're paying 10 gold for, well, it's not quite 8 Finns because you don't get the extra regen, but maybe it's like 6 or 5 Finns, and that's so worth 10 gold. Like a Finn node for me is worth like maybe like 4 gold. So that's, you're like the like gold chocolate is worth more than 10 gold on day 3. So you're kind of, you just have to think of it like you're gaining resources. Like you're making a profit there. But then when the max, like when your health scales, a gold chocolate goes down like in value. So on like day 9, now it's only like maybe 5% of your max health or 10%. So that's why I value it so highly early, because it is effectively like getting a ton of percentage max health.
It's
I'd also say that Stell is health is inherently good on Stell because almost all of her builds are racing and because in-flight meal exists. So there's like, you will get paid later. Like knee brace is unbelievably good on Stell because you a lot of times have like you like, for the same reason that tethers is good, like you have extra board slots potentially, like your carry is like this setup with turret or whatever or balloon engine, and then you like, okay, I'm just playing this random knee brace, so you don't get punished a lot in terms of like it impacting your total damage output, but the health is so good. Like in the mirror, when you and your opponent are both turrets and you're both spinning up at the same speed because it's the same card, and you like, basically, like, you're very likely to face an enemy Stell whose damage is ramping at a very similar or even exactly the same speed as you. So even like medium-sized chunks of health, like 150, 250, are extremely impactful for racing. And then like even in late game, it's just like, think about the builds, like hang glider, a bunch of like, I'm gonna need time to dish out the damage. Like I'm gonna need time to ramp my dagger wing. I'm gonna like, her builds all require time in the late game. So health is just unbelievable on her. Even better than I'd say on maybe not better than on Pig, but
I think it's
definitely
like
better
about
than definitely better than on Dually, I would say. Health
it's
is
been
really strong on
feeling
her.
very, very similar to on Dooley for
On Dually,
me.
okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the main thing, of course, is there are, I believe, only 2 nodes in the game that don't scale in any way. And it's mainly the chocolates and the artisan dunes. And that's why those 2 nodes are so disproportionately powerful the earlier you get them, because they're kind of scaled in a way that they are the same value on day 1 and on day 16. So, the earlier you get them, the bigger of a difference it's gonna be, which makes it so worthwhile to just get that first chocolate that you see. It's likely to be more significant than the upgrades you can get on that day. And then as time passes a little bit, and you have other very worthwhile things to spend your gold on, and you've also already established that bit of a buffer, maybe you're set. But
And
early
that's also a
on, don't
general thing where
underestimate it.
the more prevalent the mirror match is, then
Yeah,
the better health should be, just in
yep, for
general, no matter
sure.
what hero it is. But yeah,
So I have a
that's
question
a good.
for Jota. Now that we've discussed the early game, so on Stell, what do you enjoy doing in the late game on her? I'm very curious. Do you have a favorite line on her so far?
Making things shiny is pretty good. I think that's pretty much the strongest late game. So if you can, I would always go for the start stop flying just to quest. And I think the 2 strongest lines are actually Wrecking Ball and Hang Glider. I think those are
Yeah,
her best builds.
I think those are gonna get nerfed probably next
Yeah,
week.
for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. But especially if you have a 2-second shiny freefall, it's insane. I think those are her best builds, but honestly, you can just play pretty much whatever you find on day 7, day 6. If you find a Dagger Wing, you can probably play Dagger Wing. If you find a Observatory is pretty bad. How do you play Observatory? Is it just Space Laser? That's it?
No, so right now with the shiny hammer interaction, it is playable at diamond because you can give it shiny and then it loops itself. But that's only
Okay,
because
fair.
that exploit. Without the
Shiny
exploit, it's just a
diamond
very
paper airplane maybe makes it playable. Like there are a couple. You need to have a lot of enablers, right? Like you need to have so many small fast flyers for it
The
to
issue with it
really.
is that a lot of Stealth's best builds are very board space hungry. So when you're just removing 3 board spaces, you have less synergy on the rest of the board. It's like Observatory just takes up a lot of space. So the trade-off, how should I phrase it? You're
Yeah, it's
losing a lot of activations.
This is how I
even
feel about Radar Dome too, by the way.
yeah, because I think Radar Dome is an insanely powerful item. Like if you just read the text on it, it's nuts. And then
Yeah,
you
yeah.
play the character in practice and you go, oh man, I have 1 space to spare and this item takes 3. I guess I can't put it on my board.
Yeah, but just for the record,
Radar Dome is insane, right?
I think that
Radar
okay.
is a
Just for the
top
record,
10.
I'm not comparing those two at all. I
No,
think
so what
Radar
I'm
Dome is
saying
excellent.
more is
Okay.
that if Radar Dome is an item that you occasionally have troubles fitting, because depending on my build, I have sometimes faced that, oh, I just can't fit Radar Dome, and then in other scenarios, like especially Wrecking Ball, it's much more within reach. But if that's the threshold for items that Stell can be so space constrained that she has trouble fitting, and then you look 3 rungs lower at Observatory, then I feel like that's an item that's a little bit screwed in terms of finding its way onto your board realistically.
Do you think what makes Wrecking Ball OP is that it's a medium? That it is the board space thing that
Big part of it,
is
yeah.
why?
It
Oh,
helps
okay.
a lot. Yeah, I also just think that Wrecking Ball is extremely anything that has charge 5 on it. There are very if you look at Dualtron, you look at most powerful. I'm gonna kill you. Large charging items, they don't charge 5 seconds. That's a very big number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Imagine if
it
Dualtron
is an
charged 5.
extremely big number. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that is also just a major thing. 5 is just so much. If you can just spam that with a shiny free fall, that is
Yeah.
impossible,
It
like just an
definitely
impossible number.
feels like an item that I imagine might still be too powerful as is right now, even when you can't get shiny onto things that are medium. But it feels like in a world where neither the Wrecking Ball nor the Free Fall can consistently get shiny, you would imagine that it's an item that seems much more possible to find numbers for that would make it relatively balanced.
Yeah, I would say it's absolutely balanceable. I don't think like
Yeah.
some people I see are acting like this cannot exist in the game. I don't think that at all. I think this absolutely can be a keg-like payoff for Stell. And to be fair, like a lot of people act like it takes no effort to play it, but no, you actually do kind of need like a good enchant on it as well. Like it won't vanilla one-shot someone. You need like a good enchant or a radar dome, ideally like a Nicola. Like you can't just buy it and just win the game, right? Like, you still have to build around it a bit. So I think tune the numbers, get rid of the shiny nonsense, and it can just be a hard to make work, like a powder keg, right? Like it's hard to make
Yeah.
work, but if you make it work, it's really powerful. So and I want those kind of items. Like Stell doesn't have a lot of other items that work like keg, where it just like a lot of Stell's other items are like they're scaling a flat number. Like I think she also has the self-destroy stuff that is percentage based, but I think it's very important for heroes, especially if Pig ever becomes like by far the best hero. You know what I mean? Like to have something that actually
Yeah.
just scales with max health.
Like the
Otherwise,
issue is just that it's so forcible right now.
yeah, and also just so like it's just broken. Like it shouldn't be
Yeah.
able to just
They
one-shot
they
someone.
didn't comprehend. Like I'm confident they didn't comprehend the consequences of shiny freefall being so widely available. Like that in particular makes it so that both Hang Glider and Wrecking Ball are turbo powered,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
without the shiny freefall, either of those builds are taken down a notch quite a bit.
Yeah, not to mention that the hammer, like this is another thing, like the hammer can upgrade anything currently. So you can get a diamond free fall on like day freaking 6 or 7, which is all like it's not quite like putting shine on it, but you know, a 2-second item on day
Yeah.
6 is like that is, and again, hammer will definitely get nerfed just individually.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see a lot fewer day 6 diamond free falls with that as well. So that's also something
Yeah.
to keep in mind. Stealth upgrades are currently super inflated because of the hammer. So yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to mention some other so Wrecking Ball and Hang Glider aside, which I think we can all confidently say by the time we record the next podcast, they will probably have different numbers on them in some capacity. Some large items I've been really impressed by is Stellar Swallowtail, which I know MetallFenix, we can get into that a bit later, because you're like the connoisseur of it. That's a really cool item. But I also adore, what is it called? Shoot. Okay, I'm actually
Describe
blanking.
it.
Hold up. I'm just gonna look at Stellar large items. Give me a second
The
here.
roundabout.
No. Wait.
But when we talk about it,
Skyliner?
I can say like Radar Dome. Like you said that you
Hold up.
often have trouble fitting it. I think Radar
Hold up,
Dome is
hold up.
amazing. The thing you kind of have to do with it though, play a medium carry. Like Radar Dome plus
Yeah,
large
that was
carry
kind of my
exactly,
point.
is
Is
like
that
too
it was
much.
space
Yeah,
hungry
so it's
in that
okay.
like
Okay.
it doesn't
Yeah.
work well with the other
So
large bolts.
Stellar Workshop is like sorry, Stealth. I keep messing this up. So Stealth's Workshop is and Metal. You maybe can pull it up on the screen because it is like a very like it's more than meets the eye. Basically, you would expect that it only goes into like tool builds, but what I love about this item is that you can be so creative with the restriction. So it's an item that reduces the cooldown of your tools, and then whenever you use a tool, you charge a vehicle or a drone. And it turns out that a lot of Stealth's weirder items, like Low Roller, are vehicles. And so Low Roller is an item with multicast. And so essentially, this workshop item just allows you to do a bunch of crazy combos if you're just creative enough. And I'm sure in the coming weeks, people will discover new ways to make this work. But yeah, this might be my favorite Stell large item. Every time I see someone in the Discord server post a new like 10 win with this item with 2 Stell items I've never seen on a board before, I'm just like, yeah, I think this is probably my favorite Stell large currently. Just because it, again, the restrictions on it are so interesting, right? Like there are a lot of stealth tools, and then some stealth tools are even drones. So like there's so much stuff you can do here. And I'm curious if any of you guys have experimented with this or have any like what do you like? Do you have any
I
experience
played
with this
with
item?
Hanger, but not with this one.
Okay.
I played with the shiny Hanger Molten Ball Blaster board.
The best
what I tried.
way to think of this one is it's very akin to like Speedrunner back when Speedrunner was like really overpowered, except the main difference being that for this one they did a very good job of making it broad enough in the same way that Speedrunner was, that you're always going to be able to do really powerful things with it, but at the same time, it's narrow enough in the sense that you have to put in a lot more work than you did with the speedrunner, because effectively what you have to do is you usually run all tools except for your win condition, which can be a tool or something that isn't a tool, and then you typically run only a single vehicle or drone next to a what's it called again? The charging little tool.
Rivet gun.
Rivet gun, yes. So you run that next to a rivet gun, and then you're effectively funneling all of the procs into the vehicle or drone to charge the rivet gun to be able to charge whatever you feel like. Or alternatively, if you find a vehicle that can be a carry item and then charge it, that also works. But right now, I think that might be more of a thing if, say, like, people cook something up with like lava roller or something. But right now, most of the vehicles that can carry have some level of dependency on things being flying, which is hard to do without also running the angle grinder drone, and even then you're kind of better off on a hang glider.
I guess if you
board to
get the
that,
free ride skill, you should look out for this card, because that
yeah,
makes this
so
go
free
absolutely
ride
nuts.
just means you can ignore the rivet gun entirely and you just do the vehicle, and the same goes for thrusters from the Infernal Frigate. And it's a very, very flexible item, and I think it hits that sweet spot of like people who find it the most fun to make weird stuff work. I don't think it's ever going to be Stell's strongest archetype necessarily, because I feel like the big strength of the large gold vehicle carry playstyle, as we've talked about previously, is that you have so much redundancy. A lot of the time, I do not care if I hit Private Roundabout or Glider or Swallowtail or Daggerwing or Skyliner, because I can have a hedge where I can basically slam any of them on the board and they can be my carry. But obviously, if you're angling for Stell's Workshop, you're gonna need to hit things that are way more specific, but then the payoff is that you get to run some funky boards. So,
Yeah, so
good
I
design.
just want to highlight the combo here. So it is a Diamond Stealth Workshop with a Diamond Rivet Gun. And then if you pull up Low Roller again, I'm going to explain what happens. So if you have Diamond Workshop, Diamond Rivet Gun next to a Low Roller, so what happens is that the Low Roller has 3x multicast when it's next to tools, and then a 4-second cooldown. So it goes off, it charges the 5-second Rivet Gun 3 times. So that's the Rivet Gun gets charged 3 seconds whenever the Low Roller goes off. So that's after 2 procs, it's gonna make the Rivet Gun go off. The Rivet Gun then charges the Low Roller 2 seconds, right? And then on the third proc, it charges the Rivet Gun 3 more seconds, then you have a few other tools. So essentially, it just infinitely loops. Like the Low Roller charges the Rivet Gun, which charges the Low Roller.
The thing
and
you're
then,
charging with the Rivet gun fills the gaps in the loop.
and then no. Essentially, what you can do then is you can utilize the Rivet Gun to charge any item of your choice. So you have a bunch of
that's
other
what I
tools
mean.
on the
The
board.
item you're charging with the Rivet gun fills the gap in making it a full loop, because you're charging. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so it's just a very cool combo here where they just like low roller is not an item you like it's a decent haste item for sure, but it's not like a item you immediately jump to and go, oh, that looks like a really powerful stealth item. But then because of this cool workshop and the fact that this has a vehicle tag and the way rivet gun works at diamond, it's just this is what I mean. Like I would have never imagined that low roller could be part of like some crazy combo. But yeah, so and there are a bunch
Low
of stuff
roller
like that. Yeah, go
actually
ahead.
has a very good synergy with another great Stell large item, that's Crane. If you get Crane on Stell, you
Yeah.
play Launch Tower,
Oh,
Crane, Low Roller headset, plus like any tool, and you basically kill at 5 seconds.
I mean,
on
you
the
can also
Crane.
just put shiny freefall simulator next to it too. That like the thing about Crane is, like
No, no, but like
you have
you
so much
don't need any
synergy.
shiny, you don't need anything. Just like Launch Tower, Crane, Low Roller plus headset basically makes your Crane go off at 5 seconds, having stacked like I don't know how
Okay.
many Low Roller triggers. It's insane. Like that's
yeah,
I had that board today, and it's so good.
yeah. I'm curious. I saw Retromation play forklift on Stella, and they had like a great success with it. I'm curious if you're meant to go to the what is he called? The guy that gives you both. Like
Yes.
it's also just I feel like both of those are like could be like really powerful. Just you just can put them on the board or build around them. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is like becomes a default Stell a monster click. Like you just click him, and then occasionally you just win the game with the diamond crane or whatever in the late game. But yeah, that's super cool. Like I love that there is so much stuff you can do on Stell currently. I feel like we have only
She just
like
has so many 2-second items, right? Like there's no hero that has so many fast items, right?
yeah.
Just like
I mean that
that's
sure helps.
so yeah, it helps her building any kind of engine. It means that like even though the engine pieces themselves like rivet gun is not really that great of a card, in
Sure.
terms of like compared to what it once was, for example.
Yeah.
Um,
Imagine
but
old Rivet Gun today on Stell.
yeah,
Holy
like
shit.
it would just be absolutely bonkers if you had old rivet gun on Stell's current kit. I just put it next to a paper airplane that's perma hasted in 2 seconds. Like it would just be completely stupid. So like you see how the cards that transfer her like procs to other cards have mostly been nerfed, but like the things that could theoretically proc like her fast items are all intact. So if you get off hero stuff that like like crane, like whatever pendulum, whatever, like they just go absolutely crazy on Stell. Like they're just insane on her. So like even
Yeah.
metronome is really gross on her. Like there's just so much.
Pendulum is also a
There's a
tool,
lot.
by the way, for those who don't know. So Low Roller
Yeah.
still has a 3x next to it.
I just realized something. Low roller is kind of like a gold pulse rifle that has turbo enchant but doesn't deal damage, which makes it sound very strong. Like I just looked at the item a bit more here, and this is kind of I might just start running this on certain boards if I can just have two tools, because that is a lot of activations, right? And I don't
I
know.
mean, do you think you just play this on Dually if you get it on Dually? It's not too hard to have two tools
Probably
on
like Dooley
Dually.
loves haste for sure. I'm
Or
also
yeah,
just
like
this is
X3
such a
multi.
perfect highlight of why I think Stell is so amazing. Her items are so good at talking to each other, and for new listeners, what I mean by that is that a lot of items can play with other items very well. Some heroes struggle sometimes with items being very distant from each other. They have like no overlap at all, either because of tag restrictions or this only like buffs dinosaurs, so it doesn't work with anything else. Whereas low roller here, it is a vehicle, and we already highlighted why that is useful. It is a haste provider, which still has a bunch of like, not like just in general, haste is of course good, but she also has like haste archetypes. Not to mention, it also benefits from tools. So you can just play it in, like, it basically can go into like 3 very different builds, which is like cool, right? It's a very flexible item. So, and this is like one of 50 Stell items that are like this, I think. Like she has so many items that you find like 2 completely different builds. So,
And this item is
wanna,
pretty unassuming, right? Like I've barely heard
yeah,
anyone talking about
no,
this. This is
when I'm
not
just
like
looking at it here, and I
yeah.
just know that Pulse Rifle is played because of its activations, and Turbo Pulse Rifle is like a super strong enchant, even now that it's only one target. I'm just like, man, maybe I should be clicking this more. But at the same time, Stell has like she has an abundance of haste providers, like calipers, headset. So maybe because of that, the haste isn't as useful. But yeah, I think it could be that this item is stronger than it at first looks, for sure. I don't know, Jota, have you ever like beyond the crane setup, have you played low roller just on the board as a haste?
I've played it in a here steam hose fire hose setup, right? You play Hangar, steam hose,
Oh,
fire hose, low roller.
yeah,
Because
because
it's
it
like
starts to get haste
also
on. Yeah, that makes
yeah,
sense.
it just gives you haste. It's kind of decent. So playing it for haste is completely fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring up that build because that's the build that doesn't have flying, so doesn't care about headset, and also doesn't have smalls, so doesn't care about calipers. Like, because the normal way you would solve haste would be with headset, calipers, or anemometer, but like in
Yeah,
that build in
exactly.
particular, like those things don't really apply. So it makes perfect sense
I
to be
keep
going in
forgetting that the
there.
hoses are tools. Like I just, for whatever reason, I just think of them as not part of Stealth's tool stuff. But like, yeah, you just play that there, right? Like just put this on like day 4, day 5. Now you're much faster, and then your burn scales quicker, right? So, yeah, for sure. This
And
is
also
probably.
plays in Hangar because again, it's a vehicle. So
This
you,
is the
you
low
can't
ru-
just like build your end game.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, for sure, man.
the low
Like the more
roller glow up episode. We're
I
like
look at
big up
Stell
in low
items,
roller.
the stronger I think she is. Like in the Lost and Metal knows this, I have like there are like at least half dozen items that I went from like, oh, this looks trash to, oh wait, is this actually like secretly super strong? So yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's a lot of stuff like I wouldn't call Low Roller a super strong item, but it's the fact that she has so many items that are exceedingly playable. Like if on a different character, I could see this just randomly being like a 6-second item and they can never play it, or like
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of just stuff like that where it feels like so many of the items on the other characters have designs that are from a time when the game played so differently that they don't translate well to the way that the game is played today. But since Stell was built for the way that the game is currently played, she feels so well adapted to this playstyle of this is how items need to be statted to be playable in Season 5, and just almost every single thing on her fits that criteria. Which means that, if you just find this, even if it isn't the perfect thing that you wanted to run in that scenario, but maybe like you were playing
I
an
mean,
early game where you had like angler drone joystick, and then somehow you found a swallowtail, and now you're suddenly wanting to just do a quick cheeky pivot into that for tempo because it's what you found, and then you see a low roller and you go, oh wait, hey, this like multicasts a lot of things with haste, and my angler drone can make it fly, and suddenly that's
do you
entirely
think
viable to put
this
on your
was like
board.
a function of the testing process? Like, because they were adjusting all of the Stell items while the testing was doing like the pivot to
Yeah.
gold, like day 5. Like, I kind of view it as a function of like her items feel competitive because they were all balanced at a time when the silver items are meant to like be effective during this particular point of the game. Gold items are meant
Yeah.
to be effective during this later point of the game. And every single one of her items, like, or not, probably not every single one, but most of her items fit that
Mhm.
mold. Whereas like that's just not the case for the older
I will also
characters,
just
right?
say
I
I
think
think
so,
they've
yeah.
also just gotten so much better at just design. This makes sense, right? It's the game
Mhm.
came out last year. They just have gotten a lot more experience with how to design functional heroes. I don't know if you guys remember, but Pig on release was his kit was horrendous. He had like the most broken scaling items of all time with the skyscraper stuff, and then he had a bunch like Pig has been through so many reworks. Like Stell now is probably in some ways more well-rounded than Pig is after 2 dozen like so many patch notes. Like trying to you know what I mean, like patch together him.
But
Pig is a challenge to balance. I
yeah,
think that
but
Yeah,
at
that's
the
also
they
true.
at the
they've gotten
same
better at it.
time, like I think it really does go to show that for the other characters, many of the items that did get touch-ups in the Season 5 launch do feel like they've been brought up to this new standard. So I feel like it's just going to be a little bit of a playing catch up with everyone else to get closer to Stell's level. But if that's the trajectory we end up being on, then I imagine that as more and more characters catch up and end up having low roller style items that are just solid options for you to play, I think long term it's just gonna make every character more fun.
Yeah, I know Goosefather refers to Pig as Pig 2.0 now because he has been so overhauled. It's almost like he's like if you compare Pig now to Pig 8 months ago, sure there's a lot of overlap, but there's like just build wise, how the items work. It's almost like a complete rework of like not the mechanics of Pig, but just the items. Like so many items are just
compared to
completely...
last season, he's completely different.
And
he feels totally
yeah.
different to play than last season.
You
it's not
see
even
it
similar at
like
all.
so literally too in a lot of longtime listeners remember that the first episode we ever did with Retromation was the very same week that the Mac quests were, I think, revealed or came out. I don't remember, it doesn't matter. The point is, it was the first time that we extensively discussed questing as a mechanic. And what we said back then is, man, a lot of items like Silk or Dog feel like they would have been so amazing as quest items if that mechanic existed in the game when those items were designed. And look at where we are now. They've had time to catch up, and they have literally become quest items, and I think they are so much more interesting to play with or against compared to what they've ever been before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I think
absolutely.
Silk is worse. The other two, Dog and Regal, are unquestionably miles better than they have been in months. So I think like Silk is definitely down in power. I don't think the card is unplayable, but it's just a completely different card. It's just like it could maybe be like a combo piece as part of like a fast board. Like it's a totally different interesting card now, and that's cool. And I am not quite, I don't think, even though I was like the Silk Maven for the previous version, like I don't quite feel like I have my head around exactly what to do with the new version of Silk, but I do think it's playable. Like I don't think it's bad. I think unlike Dog and Regal, it's not super good on day one. What's nice about the new Dog and Regal is that they have aggressive day one numbers,
Yeah.
which makes up for the removal of Jabalian Recurve Bow from bronze to silver. So you actually have a square item that you can buy, put on your board, and be happy with. That is just going to take a bite out of my opponent's health bar.
That
So
one
that's
is
what
My
I think
like,
favorite
about the
part
change.
about Silk being gone is that less people play Ford. Gotta be honest.
yeah. That's what lost me my last PvP in the tournament, as I was like
They nerf Ford a ton without
two
nerfing
10
Ford.
wins and then one 9 win, and then I was on Stellar Swallowtail, and the very final matchup was Diamond Fort with Diamond Ice Club and Diamond Cold Room, and it just, oof, it's not a good
Yeah,
one. So I'm
Ford is
with you
still really
here.
good. It's just less common because there's less
Yeah.
good pig
Yep.
builds that can use it. So it's nerfed in that sense, but it's still, as a card,
Which honestly,
extremely
that feels like exactly where Fort should be at.
yeah, it should be hard to
I
use
think
but
it's great.
powerful.
I think it's
Yeah.
great. Like I wasn't memeing when I said it's my favorite part about Silk being gone that Ford is
Yeah.
less common. Like it's really that.
I will say though, the Silk in particular is a bit of a funny one because I can't help but wonder how much of Silk being weak on day one is because they want to keep Silk on Haunted Kimono.
Well, it had to be. I mean,
yeah.
we know what happened, right? Silk was Silk
Yeah.
was 100 shield on test until the
Yeah.
very last day starting. It's just that it made it so Kimono was a fight that you like was hard and that you actually lost to. Not like with it
It was
was a
like,
little easier than Viper, but it
no, it
was
was a
still quite
lot
hard.
harder than Viper.
Really?
Yeah, it shielded for like it ended up
I guess
getting
it
5
depends if you
activations,
were
I
like how
think.
like what you're scaling. So it's 8 seconds, right, at 100. So you have to do like 150. It has 100 HP. It had 100 and it would get 24 and then would go again at
Yeah,
32.
because the big
So it would
difference
be
is like
400 shield, right?
Viper, you have like
So you need to do
you
200
just need
damage
to do
before the
like
sandstorm.
75 within like 16 seconds or something, I think.
Yeah, Viper you need to do like 75 within 20 seconds. This one you needed to do 200 by like 2 seconds into the sandstorm. Which maybe that's harder. It
No,
depends
no,
on like
you needed to do, I think it was like, oh
because
yeah,
they
to like win by the, yeah. So
to
it
tie
was
in the
something like that.
sandstorm basically. Yeah.
Also, something I'm gonna ask just a question here. No more enchanted item or kill start. Yay or
Okay,
nay?
yes. So this will
Like,
kind
yeah,
of move us on to the topic of the week, because for the weekly topic, I was thinking that we can discuss not related directly to the heroes, but rather the changes that have happened in season 5 that exist more on a meta plane. So both the changes to the start and also the changes to the item rarities, and generally the concept of having sort of designated carry items be something that primarily exists at gold. So we usually let the guest start off with their opinions on the weekly topic. So Jota, what do you feel about those kind of season 5 changes?
I mean, I really like the change away from enchanted item start. I get that people found it fun to play, and it is kind of fun to play. But rolling up like day 2 into an like obsidian matchbox or like shielded catfish, you just lost the game just to that, right? Not you didn't lose the game, but you lost the day. There's nothing you could do. He just had an enchanted item, so I think it's a very good change. The other one, it's actually a bit more interesting to talk about. I think the gold carry items. It feels really good on Stell, I want to say, but it also pushes out a little bit these like medium carry items that start earlier. For example, on Mac, if you want to play Calcinator, the power level difference between hitting like the Sterling or like not hitting Sterling and queuing into like a gold carry item, like gold large item, is actually massive. So if you want to play like a medium carry item, it's kind of hard to contest if you don't find a random Sterling or don't find the upgrade into like the free gold item. So I'm not sure about that one. Have to test it a bit more. In general, I like it, but it does
I
push
think
out
it
some
makes
of the like
sense for
medium ones.
Mac to have. It makes sense for Mac to feel a little awkward with it, right? So many of his powerful endgame stuff was mediums and quest
Yeah,
items
yeah,
that those two both kind of clash with the kind of like focus around gold larges. That's kind of like the Stell meta, whatever, or the season 5 meta, whatever you want to call it, where you find your gold carry as soon as possible and then you pivot to that. But I will say that like I personally appreciate the pacing, right? So if you think about like how the pace of the game is now, it's like there's a steady ramp in power on days 1 to 3 as your board extends. Then there's kind of like a plateau as players are kind of trying to conserve econ for day 6. And then there's a big spike on day 6/day 7, and then there's another big spike on days 9 and 10, right? For because of temple and enchants and stuff. So there's kind of like a very I don't want to say predictable, but the envelope of where your opponent's board power is going to be is much narrower because of no enchanted item, no skill start,
yeah.
no like whatever like BS my opponent has gold drum on day 4 or whatever, like that kind of thing too.
It's
Um
almost like as if the phases of the game have just become much more clearly defined.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there's more delineation between the different portions of the game, and there's more time for it to be worth it for silver items to be good. I think that in testing, a lot of the gold item thing started on day 5 for a lot of it, and then it became like questionable when you found like a card like I don't know what's a super good example. Okay, like Battle Drone is a good example of a card that benefits a lot from the moving it from day 5 to day 6. A card that when you find it on day 3 is really strong and is maybe wasn't worth investing for just only 2 days of having a strong board, but for 3 days of having a strong board comes a much more attractive proposition. So they've both given space for the silver items to shine and also made it so like it's predictable in a way. Like I know where I need my board in the game to have a high chance of winning my round, and that to me means it's like for a good player it feels better. Like for, I mean, sorry to like toot my own horn or whatever, but like I just mean like my day 1 win rate is way up is my point, right? Because I know how strong I need to be in order to win day 1, and I'm not getting obsidian catfished and thinking like, well, there was no amount of strength I could have been, so why even bother playing around this whole segment of opponents?
Yes, so about the gold item change, I think this is the single best thing they have done to move the game closer to Reynard's vision for the game, which is that you should be encouraged to pivot. A problem the game has had ever since its inception is that the strongest strategies have often revolved around bronze items or silver items sometimes that it's just better to just invest in the board you already have instead of wasting tempo and gold on grabbing a gold large item that doesn't fit perfectly on your board. Like in a lot of metas, it was just you just didn't grab those items unless you already were in that build, which led to a lot of well, basically people call it forcing a build where you just know exactly what you're gonna play as soon as you see the bronze item that you had in mind, and you can get that to 10 wins. So long as and basically so long as the silver equivalent is an equally strong win condition as the gold the large equivalent, there is no reason to ever pivot, because if they're equally strong, why would you spend 24 gold and cripple your economy and ruin your build? So what they can do now with this change is allow these gold large items to actually be stronger than the silver equivalents. And so then the trade-off is, okay, it's day 6, and that's how it's balanced by the fact that you cannot see them earlier. I have this competent build. I have a silver item. It's working fine. I could go 10-0 with it. It is a very optimized build, but like that gold item in the shop, that is just in a vacuum a stronger item. Like that is a better win condition, but on the other hand, it doesn't fit perfectly with what I'm doing. So now my question then is, do I go for this scrappier pivot that is a bit of a risk? It's gonna take time and effort to make work. I have to sell off a bit of my board, or do I just stick to what I already have? And that is like a really interesting and good decision, because if the gold item is equal in power, then that is no decision at all. Then you just skip it and it's a dead item. So that's why,
Yeah, why would
like,
you ever buy a
yeah.
side grade?
So that's
right?
why
Like,
when people
yeah.
are like, yeah, I get crushed by the gold large item and I want my silver to be competitive, I'm like, if your silver was competitive to the gold large item, gold large items would be useless. So I think it is ultimately better for the game that gold larges are like the strongest payoffs, but they're balanced by the fact that not only are they limited to the later stages of the game, it's also just variance. Like you're not guaranteed to
I
find the specific one you want. So
will
I really
say
like the
though,
change.
like one
Yeah, go ahead.
specific caveat I would add to that in regards to what Jota was saying about Mac is that
Yeah.
I actually think it's really cool from a design perspective and from a game health perspective to have it potentially end up being that realistically the items that can also compete with the gold carry items are like silver quest items.
Yes, I was
Um,
gonna come to that. I think quest as a mechanic is the exception here, because
yeah,
quest is it is not like basically what the thing I described earlier is where you just hit your upgrade node, like back in the day we had level 7 and level 4. It's just you make your bronze items stronger and stronger, and it doesn't take any effort. Like that is a guaranteed node.
but
Quests,
the
on the other hand,
biggest thing
yeah, go
that
ahead.
I was gonna say about that specifically is that the reason why it feels like something that could be so much healthier is because I always found that one of the things that could be very frustrating with quests is that if both players are playing silver starting items, but one has a quest and the other doesn't, but you never pivot out of the silver items, then the longer the game goes on, the more it feels lopsided in favor of the person who has the quest or the meta scaling piece. Like, it might as well be like Orange Julian or Silk or what have you. It's so powerful to have your power increase over time. But if these items that are really strong, like Orange Julian, like quests, like all that stuff, have to compete against items that start at gold and are power scaled appropriately, I feel like we could exist in an equilibrium where those items are allowed to be stronger, but at the same time less oppressive. So win-win.
Yeah,
easier
and then
to pivot out of quest. Okay, so this sounds weird, but like it's easier to pivot out of a quested dog than the old version of dog. Imagine I was playing the old version of dog.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
no point in the game where I stop pouring resources into it. So the
Right.
longer the game goes on, the more like sunk cost I have. The quested dog, at some point, I complete the quest and then I'm no longer committing resources to it. It just becomes more like a regular item that's on my board that I can abandon whenever an upgrade comes. Instead of like the thing about the metascalers is that they're kind of like a tax on your economy throughout the
Mm-hmm.
game as you're forced to keep up with them in order to keep their numbers competitive. But like a quest item once it's complete is just a regular item. It doesn't have any particular effect on your run. So you can kind of pivot out of it in the same way you could pivot out of any other item without giving it a second thought. So I think that that's also a big part of like there's been plenty of games that I played in the end of the test server period where I was testing the dog and regal stuff where I had dog the first two quests done on dog and then I just ended up pivoting out of it as I got better squares and improved my board and had like caltrops and just more effective late game items. And I think that that's totally fine. Like a quest item doesn't have to be a run long item. It can just
Yeah.
be it could just be a quest you go on in the early game. Like for like I think that the concept of questing like it is a form of meta scaling, but it doesn't have to have that like connotation of silk game long meta scaling type of run defining item. It can just be a item that you meta like think Soulstone for example, right? That's like a non game defining quest. It doesn't it's just a piece that goes on a board. It doesn't define your run. And I think that like having quest items move towards that is super interesting. So, and I do like the in-flight meal style too, right? Like that has its place also. But I'm just saying that like I like that they're opening up what can be done with quests. That's super cool to me.
So I wanted to add to the start discussion that I think as important, if not more, than the enchanted item aspect is the gold skill removal. Because we
Yes.
mentioned this a long time ago on the pod. If you would like to bring up improved toxins, the skill on the screen here, that is probably the
That
biggest offender. So essentially, what they've had to do because of gold skill start is they have to balance so gold skills that start at bronze around the fact that you can get them on day one. So they cannot allow a skill that should theoretically not appear in like nodes until day 6 to be too strong, because if it's too strong on day 1, then it will be broken, which means that so we have this skill here. At gold, it gives your poison items +3 poison. That is one of the worst gold skills ever, and it didn't start out this way. I think it used to be like 1,
And it used to be
2, 4,
6.
yeah, 6 or something, right?
It used to go 2-4-6.
Yeah, 2, 4,
you
6.
could-
Yeah. But they had to change it specifically because uh, the 6 or whatever was so strong on day 1 with like
Yep.
any poison item. And the same applies to the burn, but the burn is still like I think burn just is overall stronger than poison on average.
Well, I would say that like fiery is tough to go for as a starting skill now too, with the same, like, when we still had them, that one was still a pretty rough one to get. And I feel like you really feel it too, even now, when you find it at bronze or silver because of that, where a lot of the time, if it was like 2 on one item versus 4 on one item, would be like kind of playable. But even if I'm on like Balloon Engine and I get Fiery for +1 on it, it's just like, oh, I'm better off with left-handed.
Yeah, it feels so bad. I remember on the, what is it called? The Pyro, right? He used to have the old version, but now that he has the
Yeah.
current one, it's like, it's just in practice in most builds, it's a cinders that doesn't give you gold,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
So I really hope that I'm sure they're gonna do it now that they're no longer limited by having to balance these skills around that start. They can finally allow the gold equivalents to be appropriate for when you actually see them in the game.
Yeah.
And the other thing, so a lot of people wonder, why did they do this? It's not just because of balance reasons. It's also because they changed the monetization system to where now when you play normal mode, you can get chests from there as well. And normal mode doesn't have like a concede penalty, which meant that what people would just do if they want to just farm gems in this new system is you could just, go enchanted item start and re-roll until you get an obsidian catfish, which would lead to this really weird, like do you see what I mean there? Like just the infinite
Yeah,
re-rolls.
normal would be filled with obsidian catfishes
Yeah,
and
exactly.
shielded matchbox
It would be
and
a terrible
shiny
play. Like,
piggles or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
the goal of normal mode is not to be some kind of weird optimization for chests. It should be like a place where perhaps newer players or more casuals can enjoy the game. So I think you cannot have like uh, um, the enchanted item system with a game mode that not only has like an incentive to grind it, but also has like no concede penalty. Like you could have it realistically still be in ranked because we do have a concede penalty, but in ranked then there is the balance part, right, where it makes sense. So just to those curious, like, why can't it be still in normal mode? No, normal mode is where it would be the most abused in the new
I
system. So
will also
just to
say,
give some
like,
context.
originally, when all this stuff was added, like, most characters had so many less items, and items were so much less competitive that what it originally was you got an item and a skill. And the reason for that was because you got a silver item, and then I think for a while it was like a silver skill. It worked through like different rarities. And it was because the only way back then that you could make people play this kind of like a lot worse items was to give them at a higher rarity to give you a reason to actually play them, to have your early games shape up a bit differently. And that was kind of the thing with enchanted bronze items too, right? Like the idea originally, I think, was more along the lines of you might get a cool enchant on a bad item and play that. But
Yeah,
now
but
I
that was
feel
before
like
Mandala. It was also before
yeah,
it was also before like the enchants were buffed originally. Like
yeah,
when enchanted items was first introduced, there wasn't even 10x enchants,
yeah.
right? So
And
it was a lot weaker.
so because of all that, it also feels like now we've had so many items added and reworked and made better and made more interesting that at least personally I've felt like you get way more variety just naturally in the early game from the choices that you make being more interesting in their own right too. And
Yeah, the shops are more interesting than the enchanted
yeah,
items start.
and I do really hope that on the topic of gold skills, I feel like the more like chaff that they've just added in order to make the starts worse, the less and less I've been going Orlin at like 13 and 16 to go for a gold skill, because it just feels like so often you just hit two absolute bricks, and I would just love to feel like the option of picking skills was a compelling choice.
Yeah, if gold
Yeah,
right or left-handed were actually like good, it would be so nice. The way that the flat red damage skills scale is so bizarre. Like the
Yeah.
the one that was recently added, the Vanessa one, like scales really well. Do you know what I'm talking about? The one that's like damage for the number of weapons you have or whatever. Yeah, Steel Storm. Yeah, like that one randomly scales well, and all the other ones are like horrible. Like
right, because the way health scales in the Bazaar, red damage cannot scale linearly to be competitive. But the skills, meanwhile, are like they're
worse
strongest as
than
bronze.
linear. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're worse.
it makes no sense at all.
They
Like, it
have
absolutely
diminishing returns.
And the
Yeah,
worst offender, if you guys remember, it's called, what is it called? It's like if you have 7 items on the board, your
noisy
weapons.
cricket.
Yeah, it gets like 5 extra damage. So you get a
It starts at 20 and then go 20, 25, 30.
Yeah,
It's so pathetic.
you pay as much for like 20 or 25% of an increase, which makes no sense. I don't know. I think that is
so
probably something they need to work on.
When they have some more time, like maybe by season 6, depending on how much like backlog they have to work on, just a bunch of other stuff, I think that it would be really cool to see those things be like completely different.
Yeah, because
So
they did this to
maybe
rework.
like one thing they could do is just remove the like some skills. Like I feel like, do we really need like right-handed shield, left-handed shield, and like all like do we really need like 4
and the big
versions of like
reason,
flat
like,
heal and shield skills? Like
actually,
is
for
that
that, like, I remember when improved toxins and fiery were added as bronze skills from being silver starting, specifically to make it less consistent to get like initial spark or final spark and what have you. So I definitely do think that like we don't need to have the bronze pool be like completely terrible if it
Yeah,
isn't
and what if they just put
also
more interesting? I'm not even
buildable.
saying that like those skills are useless. They're not. But what if there was just more interesting skills instead? Like
I like that.
Yeah, I think the skill I just want gone from the game is flanking criticals. It is my least favorite skill by far.
that's pretty.
I hate the design. So usually, especially now with the redesigns, large items are your carry items, right? Those are, yeah. So your carry item that is probably a bit slower, that is dealing all the damage, gives 15% crit to adjacent items, which are your support items that probably don't do any damage at all. It's just, I think the design is just, it boggles the mind. It should be the opposite. Like if you want it to actually be a real thing. So that is
It used to be okay on Silk because you'd put your money tree.
Yeah, of course, but that's all problems lead to pig. Like every time there is like an exception to a rule, it's because of pig.
You gotta
basically.
do it with in the glider private roundabout line. It's a great
God.
skill.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh.
Anyway, so
Yeah,
I am super happy. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I was curious though, Jota, on the topic of quests, as the resident Mac player here, do you use the quests a lot currently, or have you been going more for the like tempo-esque lines?
I think quests are still fine. I think Torch specifically is probably the best quest item at the moment.
Right.
Because it can just like still solo carry, while Idle is kind of bad. Life Conduit is a little bit worse. Spider Maze and Earring having their ICD fixed makes those lines like a little bit worse, of course. Like the infinites are a little bit harder to do. But I think overall, Mac really wants to have like catalysts at the moment. And catalyst kind of limits how much relics and how much quest items you can hold and stack. So what I've been doing at the moment is just like holding 2 catalyst gens and rolling like random shit a lot of the time.
Have you gotten a chance to play with the new skill, like the 1 potion skill?
I haven't yet.
Okay.
But it's amazing.
Your impressions of that, like I that really jumped out as me.
Which one
jumped out at me as
it's
being
giga
really
broken.
strong.
It's the most broken shit in the game. If you have it on VAT, it's the best build.
All right.
Like
I forgot to ask about VAT. Have you played VAT yet?
Yes, I have played VAT multiple times. VAT is probably one of his best builds. It's like VAT basically is one of the only like large items that you see and you can always pivot into, right? The other large items on Mac need like way more build around and like way more things to be like good or like the rest what you have, while that is just a build by itself. And there's like enough different variations of it that you can just play it. But yeah, 1 potion plus that, amazing.
Such a good name for the skill too. The
I
one.
guess
Yeah.
that's I assume
Yeah,
it's
great flavor.
yeah, diamond starting skill.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's rare, but like I haven't had it yet in a run, but that is really good.
What's
That's
your
like
like go-to VAT setups then?
There's like 2 different ways you can play it. You can either play it with like a low cooldown multicast, so you go for the recycling bin to get lower cooldown, and then you just like go
Right.
multicast. Or you want to like pendulum or sampler it, so you charge it for the basically multicast. You can also combine them, like you can go something like bin, potion, pendulum, vat, whatever. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. You can combine them, but mostly you don't really have the slots. So you either go like multicast or you go like charge. And that's basically what you want to do. There's like lots of ways to give multicast.
Right.
Between like, I
Do you
mean,
think
avoiding
that
flask potion is
benefits
the
from
easiest.
the? Do you think that benefits from the enchantment change as well? Because it has like you can get double burn or double poison.
Yeah.
Or yeah, okay.
That's pretty
I
good
was about
too.
to say like that struck me as another like aside the fact that it just got buffed, it's just anyway. That also seemed like another reason why it might.
I think
be
the biggest
benefiting.
buff though is it's just like gold starting. So you're never stuck on like a silver vat that you have in your stash and like carry around.
Oh,
And also,
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And also like the tempo of the game is like better for it, right? You know when you like want to hit that to make the pivot work, right? If you hit it on day 6, day 7, you know you can make the pivot work. While before you had like a silver one on day 5 and you're like, cannot really do
Yeah,
it.
I mean that kind of comes back to what I was saying earlier about the like pace of the game being
Yeah.
more narrow. Like you know your opponent's strength much better than in previous seasons. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean that was even strong on test server. I don't know if you had the chance to play it there. That was
No,
great.
I didn't get like I played only Pig and Stell on test server. I felt like so over like there was just so much, right? It was just so overwhelming. It's so hard. Like
Yeah.
I'm not the kind of person who can just like play a different character every single game. Like I just feel like I'll play so poorly. Like to me, like I'll play 2 characters at a time tops, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, I
And
think
then
that's
switch
kind of fair.
between
On the
them.
test server, I also played pretty much only Mac and Stell. So
Yeah, I think
completely
honestly,
agree on that.
in a surprise twist of events, I am starting to feel like because Mac is, I think, the one that it's the longest since I've played last, but I'm kind of starting to be maybe the most interested in picking him back up again, just because it feels like he does a lot of cool stuff. And I did also notice that there were a lot of players in the tournament, not necessarily who played Mac every run, but for the players who went with the strategy of going for 3 different characters in order to maximize their uniqueness score without having to compromise on power, I did see that Mac was a very popular like third pick to go like Stell, Dooley, Mac, for example.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna like you, Metal. I think I'm kind of interested too. Like I said, I kind of struggle with I just don't like jumping from one character to another. Like, oh, I'm playing 3 games on 3 different characters. That's like annoying to me because like when I see something in the game, it's like, oh, okay, I see that on the way in my run. Like, oh, I want to try that. I want to try that next run. So I keep accumulating things that I want to try on the character, and it's hard to switch off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like there's still stuff like I've been playing, like I said, mostly Stell so far, and there's still stuff on Stell I haven't tried. Like I haven't done any low roller. Like I want to try low roller crane. That
Yeah.
sounds sweet. Like so there's actually so much to do. There was so much to do on the test server. Like it's very overwhelming. It's a good problem, right? There's like more content than I'm physically able to
That
consume.
always used to
So
be like my favorite problem with the Bazaar, and I'm so glad that we're back to that being the case. I hope it stays this way for a long time. Like,
yeah, I
make
hope so
me
too.
lost and confused and uncertain of what I'm doing at all times, if possible. This is my best state.
And definitely,
to
I
do
feel like
it.
Mac and Pig are not well figured out right now. They're
Yeah,
not well understood right now. So, I mean, maybe Vanessa too. I'm so clueless on Vanessa, but maybe Vanessa is also not well figured out. But
Yeah, I'm hearing
certainly Mac is not.
I'm hearing a lot of
No.
rumors that like Anchor carry Vanessa is supposedly quite real as a strategy.
So on the topic of Stell and test server, as many probably know, I sunk way too many hours into Stell, and part of that is because since there were so many frequent changes, every day when you woke up, you had to like reevaluate her entire. So basically, what happened is that she started out really broken. Like we don't have to go into details, but she was. If you think she's broken now, that's not even close to like 2 weeks ago, which meant that she had like 2 super broken builds, which meant that all her other items weren't seeing play, and then they got nerfed, and now the 2 next best builds were discovered. So it was like a constant, like peeling off the layers of an onion, and then eventually all the builds got closer in power. So, but even with all that, like stuff like Wrecking Ball, for example, was just completely, as we saw, like we even mentioned it in the last episode. I wasn't super high on Wrecking Ball, even though I admitted it had a lot of potential, and now it's just like clearly her most busted item. So that just goes to show how much depth there is to a hero when they have like when their items are able to synergize in so many ways. It takes so much longer to discover like all the juice, right? Like there is so much interaction on Stell, which makes it more complex in a way because these 2 items can talk to each other, and then that leads to this third item coming along, which changes the balance. Whereas on Dooley, it is not as if someone is going to cook up a tanky anky monitor lizard comp, right? It's not going to happen. Like those items don't have any overlap, at least right now, and that just means that you can't cook as hard with like dinosaur Dooley because dinosaurs like dinosaurs, and there are like 6 dinosaurs. Good luck. Like there isn't as much. You know what I mean? Like the other heroes just don't have this level of interconnectivity. I think Estelle does, and I think the flying mechanic is the reason. Since it's like a boolean on and off switch, it just means that the complexity tree of what Stell can do, what her items care about, is so much wider and deeper than other heroes just care about. Oh, do you have this tag? Oh, do you have this size of item? Right? Like it's a lot less. I don't know.
Yeah,
Complicated.
like do you have haste? Do you have this trigger?
Right.
Like up until now, there's kind of been like a specific set of things that items care about, right? Like haste, slow, freeze,
Yeah,
whatever.
because
And we've
flying.
added a completely new one. And
Yeah,
because all of her items care, or not all of her items, but many of her items care about it, it feels like she has huge cohesion in her kit.
I also
right.
think,
Go
like,
ahead.
low key, a big part of it is the fact that, and this is also what I think is the biggest, like, barrier for people to accurately understand Stell at a glance, is that haste is really powerful on its own. Um, Slow is even more powerful on its own, and freeze is absurdly powerful just on its own. So those mechanics, when used as the trigger conditions, were always forced to be balanced in a way around the fact that you can't make a character output as much as they want of that trigger without that leading to lots of problems for all of the builds that don't use it as a payoff but just as a generic support thing. But the thing is, like flying, I know it has an effect. But like realistically, the effect of making something flying in and of itself is like comparatively not very relevant. So by giving her this kind of almost null output, where the only purpose of outputting the output, especially when it comes to stop flying, right? Because then you're removing a buff from your own board. It's something that if you don't have a payoff for doing it, is only ever actively detrimental. Means that you can let Stell have a lot of start stop flying triggers without that meaning that it inherently breaks something. It's still balanced around what can she put the start stop triggers on, and it kind of goes to show how we had a version of Dagger Ring on the test server which just had much bigger numbers, and that was way too strong. Now we have a version with smaller numbers. It's fairly reasonable, but then at the same time we have the Wrecking Ball, which has a number that means that that is clearly not reasonable at all. But all of these items are just balanceable. You can just fix those issues, which is much harder to do. When it came to Rest in Peace, but like Cool LEDs was like a prime example of that item just like had to die for the sins of slow being really strong, even though it was such a cool item to get to use as a synergy piece and enabler in certain types of dually builds back in the day.
Yeah, the fact that flying is a semi-useful thing, but it's not like a super powerful mechanic, as you say, just allows you to. It means that the mechanic itself isn't a problem, right?
Yeah.
Like it isn't. Yeah, yeah. And I think that is really healthy. I hope we see more equivalents to it in the future, like minor upside in exchange for having a toggle. Like basically, you can think of flying as a toggle mechanic, and so you have like so many permutations of what an item can care about. We have talked about this like in the last episode. Items that care about when flying items go off, items that care about when flying items start flying, items that care about when items stop flying, how many flying items you have on the board. Like there's so many ways to categorize flying, which means that you can have like a ton of different payoffs that play in different ways compared to like slow, which yeah, if you have a lot of slow, you're probably gonna be super strong. So you have to balance the slow, but then you can't have like slow payoffs that, you know what I mean? Like it's much harder to balance a slow
Yeah,
payoff than it is
the
to balance
trigger
a
has to be more expensive because it's more powerful, which
yeah.
means that it becomes more. So it's like if you do have something that slows everything, like plasma grenade, that means that the payoff is going to be super like so if you have an item like femur that scales on slow, and then in order to make femur a good item, you have to make its number high enough because
Yeah.
slow is a expensive effect. But then
Yeah.
if you give that expensive effect to something like plasma grenade for really cheap, now it's broken with. So it's like you create this situation where you because the triggers themselves are so valuable that the payoff items have to be weak. Whereas the situation where the triggers are cheap and the payoffs are weak is actually better, and that's kind of what
Yes.
Stell has,
Yeah,
right? Like
I
the
The
actual
think
biggest
scaling numbers
so
are
Ice Club and
weak.
Nitrogen
Yeah,
Hammer are like the biggest offenders
yeah,
here
I
when
was gonna
Freeze is already
bring up
so
exactly
strong.
that.
But the way those items used to be, that it was like they didn't uh, the items weren't balanced around freeze already being like super broken. So they like
Mhm.
had these insane scaling numbers which were like comparable with, you know, femurs and what have you. But then at the same time they also froze items, and they encouraged you to play freeze, which is already like its own archetype. So I think they finally learned the lesson there, where those are now much weaker payoffs. Like Hammer doesn't charge. Ice Club is much more in line now. But that is kind of the crux there. Like it's so hard to balance when you have a strong mechanic that an item benefits from. Because at the same time, if you don't have that many triggers for the item, like if you only have like one freeze effect, then you
Yeah.
can't play the item if it isn't like scaling in a proper. Like
yeah. Then
it
it's
just
just
makes it so
useless.
harder.
Yeah.
Right.
It's tough to design.
It's much more
Either you
polarizing.
make the freezes themselves rare, in which case like when the person does high roll like a lot of freeze items, then their build is unbeatable. Or you make the freeze effects common, in which case the payoffs have to be like pretty like Ice Club has to be bad if it's super easy to freeze your opponent's items, because freeze is already super good. So if it's easy to freeze your opponent's items, barely matters what your win condition is, right? So like I mean that's what we saw with when like perma freeze Mac was a build, right? Didn't really need a win condition. Your win condition could be incidental. All you had to do is permanently freeze your opponent's items. And slow functions the same way a lot of the time, right? Like if you are actually perma slowing all of your opponent's items and they don't have haste to counteract, oftentimes their build just ceases to function, and you kind of win regardless of how
Yeah.
well you're scaling or whatever. Like it doesn't matter.
And I
But like I
think
like getting away from that anyway, and flying pushes you away from that anyway because comparatively, permanently freezing your or permanently slowing your opponent's board is twice as hard if your opponent has flying, right? So
yeah.
those kinds of things are disincentivized anyway, which is nice.
It also kind of ties back into something that we always said whenever we were talking about like Freeze Pig as an archetype, of how hard it was to get into it. But that made sense because they couldn't make the necessary items readily available. Like, you can't have an item be the Ornithopter of Freeze. You can't have an item be the free fall simulator of Freeze or whatever, because imagine having to go up against that on like day 2 at like bronze starting. It would probably not be super fun. But
Right, and taking
then,
this
yeah.
a step further, so flying is like a semi-useful effect, but what I love is that Stell also has stopping, which is actually on its own,
Yeah.
like that is a like that is an it's I talked with Metal about this. One of my favorite builds in card games is like discard builds or decks where you essentially utilize something which is bad, which is, you know, discarding cards, but you have items that encourage you to do it. So like the proc or the effect is like something that is bad, but then you get to have really cool payoffs for it because it's like a trade-off. And I find that stopping Stell is similar, where you like most Stell items want to be flying. Like that's what they want. They are stronger when they're flying. You're protected against slow. But then if you add an item that explicitly tells you, no, you should, I want you to stop now, like do a lot of stopping, then it's like a deck building challenge where
Yeah.
you can make the win conditions really cool and powerful because they're balanced by the fact that you're like griefing your own board, and that's like a really fun thing. I guess
also,
like Self-Harm Mac is like similar there, like with the poison thing. Yeah. Now go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's so cool too. The way you said that made me think of something, which is that it's really cool too that because you have contradicting outputs, you get these interesting puzzles, right? Where if you just run a lot of stopping and not enough flying, then half of your like stop triggers are wasted because they can only exist when there is a flying target in the first place, which I do not think there is anything else in the entire game currently that interacts in the same way, where you have to like match two different output types to be like in line with each other.
Right.
Yeah.
It's exactly like discard decks where you have like discard decks
Right, you can't
desperately
have
need card draw, right?
only discard cards and no payoffs, because then your payoffs
Yeah,
No,
you
no, but
need
just card
yeah.
draw. Like like discard decks are the most card draw hungry. It's like you are like it's the same way. Like a lot of stop style, like for example, the old hang glider when it was mostly stop payoff, like that was the most fly hungry build in the game because you needed flying to stop, right? But it's so in a way, how should I phrase it? Like the most fly intensive builds might be the stop builds, which is
Yeah.
counterintuitive because that's the goal is not to fly. You're flying as a means to stop, which I love that kind of puzzle thing.
I think
But
it's
it's
really
also the
cool.
other way
ahead.
around, right? Because the builds that want to like fly the most also need to stop because they need to trigger the
Yeah, the
reflying.
ones that wanna
Yeah,
like
yeah.
start
Because
flying
there's like no
specifically.
if it is flying, it cannot
Correct.
start flying.
Yeah.
So there's like
Yeah.
not like
So the
I mean,
big
you're
difference.
kind
booking
of
triggers on
slowly
it.
describing why free fall is so insane because it fixes the problem by
Yeah.
Yes,
by
yes.
flipping
Free fall
it
is
no matter what.
disgusting.
Yeah.
So
Free fall is disgusting. I think everyone agrees.
yeah, so the difference between that is, for example, in the old hang glider build, is that your how should I phrase it? Like in most stealth builds, when you're playing like you want to fly as much as possible, your small items make stuff fly, and then you have like a large item that benefits from flying, like a dagger wing. You know what I mean? But so that's like I am stopping only to fly again. Basically, like my small items are dedicated to flying, and then I have like a mag shield or something that stops. Right. Whereas on like the hang glider, now the hang glider itself provides all the flying I can need, and then all my small items are instead dedicated to stopping. So like the output from your small items goes from being like an ornithopter that makes stuff fly to a marshalling light. Like you kind of flip the switch there where the large item does the flying and then the smalls do the stopping. Whereas in other flying based builds, usually the mediums or largest do the stopping and the like smalls do the flying, if that makes sense. So I just think it's really cool that they're like twin builds in a way where one both ultimately want to stop and start, but one wants to start only to fly again, whereas the other wants to fly only to stop, if that makes sense. Like it's
Yeah.
I don't know. And there's like hybrid builds with, like Daggerwing kind of wants both stopping and flying equally. So there's also like builds that just are like in the middle, whereas like Hang Glider explicitly only deals damage when you stop, right? So that one just wants as many stop procs as humanly possible. Yeah, anyway, I love, like, this is why I love stealth. There are so many cool things. Like flying is such a cool mechanic. When I first heard about it, I was like, that sounds kind of boring. But then when you actually play with it, it's so complex. But like not the like it
Yeah,
is
the way they
complicated,
used
but
it,
it's like
instead of just giving
yeah,
a bunch of, they could have just given a bunch of items flying and said like these
Yeah.
items are stronger because they're CC
right.
resistant, right?
Mhm.
But instead they went a totally different direction that is like it's actually, and like they flavored the cards to actually be about the process of
Yeah.
Yeah.
flying and taking off, right? Like it's
Yes.
about being at the airport and planes are coming in and balloons are landing and others, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it actually feels that
And
way.
there
And
is
they're not just a bunch of flying
I
items.
just
But
want to
it's
say
also so
oh, go ahead.
important that the start flying trigger doesn't count if it's already flying, right? So you
Yeah,
cannot just
Yeah.
like trigger stack starts flying and
Yep.
yeah, it's flying,
Which
but it
that's
starts flying
exactly
anyway,
how
right?
it feels a lot of the time with like haste triggers and stuff,
Yeah, yeah,
right? You
exactly,
just pile
right?
them on.
Yeah, so what's
Exactly. You
just
just like get more and more, get more haste, get more whatever, right?
Yeah, your only
say
upper
It's fine.
limit is the ICD, right? Is like the
Yeah.
number of
And
flying
then
is
still it's like you
already
have to stop. That's good.
Yeah.
really
Mhm.
Sorry.
deep, but they haven't even used the most interesting lever, which is imagine an item says that make an item fly for 5 seconds. Do you know what I mean? Like that is a lever they haven't used, which is temporary flight. Just imagine if, for example, Hang Glider said your items start flying for 5 seconds, right? Or an item that says adjacent items start flying for like 1 second. That means
and
that
then
you
they
now
land automatically after a
yes,
second
yes.
or whatever. Okay,
But
that would be
yeah, but
cool.
then the problem becomes then it's a much more complex puzzle, right?
Yeah,
Because you have
because
to try and
I
yeah.
actually would say that specifically
Mhm.
flying in its current implementation is exceedingly simple. It is
Yeah.
one of the most simple things in the game, and that's exactly what makes it so cool. Because I'm low-key a little bit of a anti-complexity type guy, where I like advocating for depth without necessarily needing to introduce excessive complexity. And I think that's what they've nailed so beautifully with Stell, is that I always feel like I can very straightforwardly and easily describe to people what Stell is, what she does, and why she is that way or does those things. Like when you make the overview for Stell was like, there's a lot on there just because she has so good items, but it was one of the ones that I felt like was the thematically simplest of all of the ones that I've done, because it all just does what it says on the tin. It's self-explanatory at face value, but the beauty of it all is that even though that is the case, because the mechanic itself is so simple, they don't need to feel like they have to hold back when they introduce tons of complexity when it comes to timings and positional requirements. Because if you make the entry point so simple and straightforward that any player can understand it, and then everything else, the context adds the complexity, you don't need to be worried that it's going to be like a massive cognitive overload to the point where like most people can't work it out and it becomes entirely unapproachable. So I kind of hope that they keep that tone going, where the base mechanic is extremely simple and what makes it interesting is everything that surrounds it practically in the
Yeah.
I
game.
also like how it gets more complex over the course of the game, right? So like it's
Yeah.
pretty easy
Mhm.
to understand like how the fight is going to go on in terms of like your sequencing of flying items when you have a 6 slot board.
Mhm.
When you have a 10 slot board and it's 8 different flying and start and stop flying items, it becomes a big mental challenge, but those pieces individually are very simple and they were even simple to figure out at the point in time when your board was just Kara Kara turret an angle grinder drone, or like you can figure out the puzzle really easily on day 1, and then it gets harder on day 2, and it gets harder on day 3, and you sort of build up an intuition for how the cards function together as you continue to add more pieces to it. And so, or other pieces drop out, it kind of gets more complicated. The cooldowns get shorter. Basically, like everything like it does get more complex, but that complexity is not coming from what the cards do or what the cards say, but rather that there's more of them, there's more opponents' effects, there's more skills. That's what's bringing in the complexity, and it feels natural. It feels like earned, as opposed to just like we made a really complicated card.
No, I completely agree.
It is a deep mechanic, but it's not verbose or complicated. Like it's just very simple. But what I want to highlight is just the fact that in the future, if they want to introduce more ways to interact with flying, there could, for example, be like a stealth or monster skill that says your items start flying for 1 second. So it would be like a rigged or a, like how haste works. Like haste is like your items are hasted for like 1 second, and that could just introduce another like way to think of flying, where you have these items that are like you get temporary flying, but then you also get like stop effects in this like in the same like you don't have to say your items start flying, then 1 second later they stop flying. You can just write your items fly for 1 second. It's like another way to just in the future, if Stella gets like more expansions, if you want to keep the flying theme but add like a new archetype, you also have the lever of just time as a way to actually balance flying instead of just on and off, which I think is also like I'm looking forward to like in the future if that ever happens, because that just like, for example, imagine there's like a flying flashbang that is like 1 ammo, all your items start flying for 3 seconds, right? And so maybe you want that in aggro line, just once flying for a short time for like a headset, or you'll run it in a stopping build because you want all those, mass stop triggers. So anyway, I just thought it was worth highlighting that like as simple as flying is, yet complicated, there are also ways in the future to just naturally build on the mechanic.
I was thinking you could do like a card that like it's like shooting your other card out of a cannon, like an adjacent item gains haste and flying, and then like after 3 seconds destroy it and use it. So it's like you shoot the item out of the cannon, it'll like lands on them and then like explodes and does whatever that item does. You'd have something like that.
So an actual fling. I think
Yeah,
we're
like
missing the fling.
like fling. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
because that to me, and I said this before, and I know you guys don't really play Magic, but Stell is very Boros, and one of the quintessential like parts of that is fling. I mean, fling is also kind of like a black red thing, or like a Rakdos mechanic too, but it's also kind of similar. Where it's like small synergistic like aggro builds that throw their resources at their opponent, like, and that's kind of what the destroy mechanic is. But like I think you could go even more like evocative with it, where like I'm using my one card to like shoot my other card at you, like I'm throwing my thing at your face in like a sacrificial way. And I think that could be super cool. The other way you could do it would be like permanent self-destroy, like so something that like when it's destroyed gives you a permanent buff but is also permanently destroyed. So that could be like another interesting thing that Stell could potentially do.
You don't do like this temporary flying concept. I think that actually doesn't make sense in Stell. I think like Pig has, for example, slingshot, and he has the like the launcher. Like imagine like like temporary flying would be like things you throw. You know what I mean? Like a slingshot throws something. So like that makes more sense on like Pig because he has a bunch of stuff that is like projectiles. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What about Treb? That's a
exactly.
Throws things.
Yeah, I feel like maybe this temporary thing, like give all your items flying for like 2 seconds, maybe that is something that shouldn't be on Stell because she already has so much flying. But you could like put it on freaking Pygmalion with like his toys just fly everywhere. Yeah.
If I
But
don't
can pigs fly?
misremember, yeah. I think the main reason that they said that they want to avoid ever doing temporary flight is because it really messes with the UI in terms of ways that you can cleanly and readably indicate the remaining duration of the temporary flight.
But they can be like haste and slow, right? It just
Yes, what they're
it's flying and
saying
you
is
see, okay.
basically that if you keep adding on more visual effects like that, you'll get to a point where it's not readable anymore. So that it would be really hard to see.
They don't want to add a third number in addition to haste, slow,
Right, whereas like the
freeze, and
flight
other card.
animation itself that's why it's so excessive. Like the cards move up in the air and they start shaking, and it's easy to see even if they are slowed or hasted. You can see which items are flying or not flying at a
Yeah, sure, but
glance.
if again,
So
if this was like
think that's like
yeah, but
primary
again, that's why I don't want it
concern.
on Stell. Like Stell already has so much flying, but imagine just on Pygmalion, like he doesn't have a lot of flying, and the little flying he has is like temporary. Like just if that is like just limited to, for example, Pig, it wouldn't be hard to tell because he doesn't have a bunch of permanent flying stuff. So
Well, no,
when you
no.
see
So
a,
the problem is that it's another number, so that it conflicts with slow and haste, not with fly.
yeah, but like sure, but that means that we're never gonna have other status effects than slow and haste. Like surely
Yeah, it's very
that has
possible, yeah,
short-term.
that they would feel that like they want to explore other design spaces rather than something that can cause like
Or they'd
I
have
mean, you
to
have freeze as well. I don't
show
know.
readability
Like we
them.
have
issues.
You have to
freeze.
show them visually in a way that doesn't interfere with the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah, but we already have three. Like you guys forgot about freeze. Like we already have.
Well, yeah,
like
but
you can theoretically have
that's
three
exactly the
effects.
point. Is that if we already have 3, it makes them more reluctant to add more, not more willing.
Sure, but if it is limited to like a mini set, like how often are you gonna have an item that is flying, frozen, hasted, and slow? Like that is so rare if it's only limited to like a specific piece of a puzzle that I think
I don't know,
again,
like
if it wasn't widespread.
anytime one person played like Weather Machine plus an item with temporary flying, that would be like all it takes, right?
Yeah, but it's not like you're forced to pay attention. Like you don't. Like when I'm playing against Vanessa and she's like like slowing and haste. It's not like I'm manually counting her shot glass procs or whatever. Like I don't think most people
No,
would.
no, it's more that
Whatever.
they want casual players to be able to see what is happening in the game.
I think
Okay.
visual clarity is a like big part.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And like what you
I
really
just feel
should
like
strive for.
this is
yeah,
So
I
something
agree.
you could try
I
and
kind of like
solve.
the idea like thematically, but it's really hard to implement.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
Yeah,
sure, it's hard to implement it visually, but it's not as if it is a unsolvable problem. Like a ton of other outer batters have like a ton of like there's a ton of mechanics, and it's just about finding a way to visualize it that is like intuitive. Like a lot of people are already like complaining that they don't like the way flying looks. So I personally like it, but my point is, it is not as if they can't innovate here and find a way to actually.
If I had a complaint, I would just say it's a little loud relative to the other
Yeah.
sound effects in the game. But that's kind of nitpicking for me. I
No,
don't
but I
mind
feel
how
you
it looks.
about, and I also think that another potential issue with this is, of course, if it is like timing based, because that's what's going to be. If it is like, hey, like make everything fly for 2 seconds. If you have like tried to calculate a proper, you know what I mean, like a sequencing, and then your opponent is like slowing that item, then all of a sudden it gets really hard to, like, oh wait, is everything in sync now? But that is kind of true already with the current flying toggles, where if your opponent slows your free fall, now it's desynced with your ornithopter, and then you're sad. So I don't know, but anyway, I just thought it was worth bringing up because I feel like there is still unexplored design space with flying as a mechanic in its current state. Yeah, but I think that probably is enough talking about flying. Do you guys have anything else you feel?
I think we can move on to the
Yeah,
non-existent board of the week.
right.
Yeah, do we have? Does anyone happen to have anything at hand that was
I mean,
especially cool to
I
show
can
off?
give you a board
Yeah,
that's like
yeah, go
somewhat
for it, go for
interesting.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're peer pressuring Jota into doing it.
Ooh,
It's a Mac board, unsurprisingly.
this is kind of old but gold, but with some new flair. So I like this. I like this.
Yeah, I mean you can show it on screen.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
a carpet
putting it on
board.
here. Move on to
Like
the right
a
segment. Actually,
Carpet in
remember.
2025. Okay, all right. It's a good
yeah,
one.
but like it's using the new cards. It's using the flying. It's using the flying potion and the Orly. And the idea is basically at like 3 seconds you proc your flying potion. Best case it's enchanted so it can like crit itself. And you just have like a very fast trigger into like your whole carpet synergy. And this board works out quite well. It's somewhat hard to get into because there's like some restraints. Like you kind of want to have an enchanted flying potion, like I said, so it can crit itself. You kind of need ammo on it. Like 1 ammo is not good enough, and it's too fast for the reload on the boiling flask. So there's like lots of things, but this kind of board, like flying potion carpet, is actually really fun to play, and can work out quite well.
Yeah, I'm a big runic blade fan. So
yeah, runic blade basically
one of my
solves your
favorite
like
items.
damage scaling problem, right? Because
Yeah.
carpet has like no damage scaling really, so you kind of need a finisher.
I just think it's a fun card in general. Just any of the
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm very glad that we ended up getting boiling flask back. What rarity is the item at currently?
Silver starting.
Silver starting, nice. I think like the worst part was when it was like barely usable before diamond. That was like tough to play with.
Oh, when it added cooldown.
When it added cooldown, yeah,
that was horrible.
Yeah, I think potions are like actually kind of playable right now in a lot of ways.
Nice. You do
And that
love
feels
to
pretty
hear
good for
that.
Mac.
Yeah, I feel like they're pretty, like the crocodile tiers early is definitely putting in work in some of my
That's such a
some of my
funny
opponents'
like
boards.
just sentence to hear generally.
I even they made it kind of like it's such a strange card. I think it's a card that what you call it? It suffers from the Arbalest problem, right? Like the ICD thing that makes it tough to play later on, I think. But
Yeah.
early on, when
biggest-
you don't have that many things hitting them, I think it kind of makes sense.
The biggest problem with tiers is just shielding. Damage to shielding doesn't count for skating. So whenever you like queue into a guy that has like 50 like shield to start, you just sad because you get like, I don't know, a third of the skating. So it's really bad. Like Crocodile Tears is a very good item at the moment, really good early game item at the moment. But it's like so matchup dependent. Whenever you like queue into shields, you just have nothing. It's doing nothing.
Yeah.
It's so weird because normally like you counter. I mean, to be honest, in a way that's like good in that it, even though it's polarizing in the opposite direction of poison, so that it like is like instead of being good against shield, it's bad against shield. So which on Mac is like maybe deserved. That
Yeah, I get
it's
that,
not
but
so one-sided.
if you play the tier, like if you want to do like a tier setup, you kind of want to have like poison and burn and use like these effects to like trigger it. And it's not like you queue into a shield build that counters you. It's just singular shield countering you. Like a single
but that would be
pearl,
like, wouldn't it
and
be
you
weird
do
if
like
Go ahead.
60% damage. Like a singular pearl. And you're at 60% damage from like what it could be. And
Yeah, but
that's
don't you think that that's like if you have only poison and I have robe in play, it's like my card is 100% ineffective. So like I don't actually think that that's like like that's not any worse than the current situation of shields into poison. So it's kind of like not that to me isn't necessarily out of line. I
I
understand
get
that
what
it's
you're
like an
saying, but it
unexpected
makes the card
behavior.
basically unplayable. That's kind of like the sad part of it. It just makes it kind of unplayable. Because like it's not like a shield build countering you, like a poison build countering a shield build. It's like a singular shield and you deal no damage.
So you're basically saying that the issue is that the risk is very disproportionate to the reward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean certainly
that makes
shield is more
sense.
common than poison, but I guess it's like I still am seeing people play it, and like I'm not feeling like, oh, I mean, maybe they did lose because of the shield thing, but I understand fixing the shield thing just because it's like counterintuitive, right? Like if you didn't
Yeah.
know that it does that, then
Yeah.
that sucks. But like I think that in general, I don't think it's so bad for Mac to have at least some cards that aren't completely like housing shields.
I
Because
mean,
I think
his whole burn archetype is pretty bad into shield, so it's not like you see
I feel
shield
like
and you're like,
Candles
yeah,
just like beats.
I
Okay,
win.
I feel like Candles just beats Shields anyway. That's my issue is that like his best burn card is Candles, and it feels like Candles just stacks burn so hard that Shields aren't actually effective against it, and so it doesn't actually feel like Shields are good against any line of his except for like my opponent is just like a shitty Mac build. Like the only thing that it counters is just a bad build.
I will say the only way that you can beat candles is usually with shields, but it's definitely not
with like coolant or something and shit. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy to beat it even with shield.
But I mean, that's like the trade-off that Mac has in general, right? You're really good at like scaling very early already, and you're really good into like defensive builds, but you just get blown up yourself really hard. Like you have yourself no shield, so if you ever play into burn early on, you die. There's like nothing you can do. You
It's
queue
like
into balloon
glass
engine,
cannon
you die.
the character.
You queue into like a rocket launcher dually that has like some burn core, you die. There's nothing you can do.
I gotta imagine that the early drills must be pretty rough for you as well.
I mean,
well, I feel
you can like
red
raise
damage
and
is
like
easier. No, I feel like red damage is easier to deal with as Mac because of regen.
Yeah, exactly. Like burn is
right.
the bigger problem. Like burn is really, really bad for you. Obviously, like any kind of burst is bad for you. So if it's like a drill triggering 2 times, dealing 400 damage because it crits, yeah, you die too. But like burn specifically is kind of hard. That's why what like at the beginning of the patch, when like people played like more offensive style, was kind of harder because they just like stacked burn so fast or like stacked the damage so fast.
Right.
You just couldn't like stack your region and actually get benefit from it.
All right.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I think that about covers us pretty extensively. We can do the usual and run through our socials, starting with you, Jota, if you just want to remind people again where they can find more of you.
Oh yeah, twitch.tv/Jota_3n. That's me.
Awesome.
Streaming mostly in the morning for Europe, so from like 9 or 10 to 2 maybe. So yeah.
Good stuff. And what about you, Sixten?
Yeah, there's actually some exciting stuff. So you can find me at twitch.tv/2610. I'm planning to return to streaming this next week, as well as on YouTube, 2610. I've been making some stealth content. Right now, probably by the time this episode drops, I might have a late game guide out, but I also have an early game build guide for stealth if you guys are interested. And then tomorrow or Sunday, whenever this episode drops, I believe that there's going to be a Bazaar Jeopardy video out on Wolf's channel where me and MetallFenix are actually participating. So highly encourage you guys to check that one out. It was super fun. And Wolf is, he was actually the guest on the last episode, funnily enough. And he is a really cool guy. And Trickster was in charge of making the Jeopardy itself and hosting. And I think those two are like pillars of the community and deserve more exposure. So big shout out to that. But yeah, that covers me. But again, please check out the Bazaar Jeopardy. It should probably be out by the time most people find this episode or later in the day. All right.
There we go. And Walter, where do you plan on hanging out after you land?
Well, you can find me in Jota's chat, actually. Yeah, you can find me in Jota's chat. I'm usually asking him why he isn't playing Pig. But no, I honestly, Six, if you're gonna stream again, I'll be hanging out in there. I'll be torturing your chat.
And yeah, you'll be backseating my fly builds that I'm mispositioning my ornithopter. Yep. I can already see it.
I did have a go at you for some creative Karakara positioning yesterday.
That's funny. So in the tournament, I got so lost in the sauce with, you know how Karakara and what's it called, the turret, you want to make sure that Karakara lands the flying on it. Then I had like initially a jetpack on the right of the Karakara, on the turret. So I had Karakara, turret in the middle, and then a jetpack. So I had like adjacency problems where I needed a empty space next to the Karakara to make sure that it always landed on the turret. But then eventually my board expanded and I didn't use the jetpack anymore. But I still believed that I needed like an extra space next to the Karakara. So I kept playing with one less board slot for like 5 days, when I could have just, as Metal pointed out as soon as he saw the run, just moved the Karakara over to the left. And I was like, that is like in hindsight so obvious, but I think, again, when you like make something convoluted and you're like, oh, this just works, and then you remove one of the pieces that, again, the jetpack was the
Was
reason
this
for
during
this.
the tournament?
Yes, it happened in the Goose. Like Goose was casting, and he pointed it out during the commentary as well. And yes, you can find that on.
I feel like
Goose
I
Brothers.
played super bad. Like I'm not saying I was playing my own run, so I wasn't really paying that close of attention to what you were doing. I feel like the first run I played with Goose casting me, I was so nervous. I mean, I also got pretty unlucky, but I feel like I played that game pretty poorly.
Yeah, so my mistake was Goose foolishly told me that I didn't have to mute myself. He wanted me to be able to talk myself. And I'm a serial yapper, and when I stream, I'm trying to be educational. The Goose was trying to commentate me, and I couldn't hear what he was saying because he muted himself for me. And then he expressed that, yeah, Sixten, it's fine if you talk and explain your moves. But what happened is I increasingly started to just try and educate people who I couldn't see the chat, I couldn't hear Goose. So I started it became a Sixten over explain run where it took me 2 hours to finish my first run, and I played poorly because I was sick. I had to intellectualize every single move, right? We have to make this play. I spent 5 minutes debating if I should sell my force field in case I should transform it at mandala, etc., etc. And then Goose, who was commentating, kept getting interrupted by me, talking over him, and I was too loud. So eventually, he had to mute me, and then after that, on the following runs, I just told him, Goose, just mute me. I just want to be quiet instead. This isn't working. And he was, yeah, you're right, Sixten. And then the other two runs were 10-1 and 10-0. So turns out I'm a much better player when I'm not yapping. Who could have guessed?
Yeah, I mean, when I did mine, I basically was only being shrimple and stuff like that. I wasn't really explaining my moves.
So a funny thing is, if you guys don't know, bronze joystick, if you upgrade that to silver and you have turret and Karakara, the joystick makes it so that the multicast doesn't proc for the turret. So how should I phrase it? The joystick at silver makes it so that the flying from the Karakara occurs after the turret has already gone off.
Yeah, it's really annoying. It makes you have to do shit then you have to transition to Ornithopter, or you have to decide to not take the upgrade, or...
Right. But so what I was doing was, because I was okay, because I knew that people in chat were going to be like, Sixten, why did you skip the free joystick upgrade there? So I intentionally, bought it. Again, this was during the tournament. I intentionally upgraded it to show in the next PB fight why it doesn't work, but then I proceeded to grief my run. You see the point there? I forgot to know.
I don't recommend that.
That's a Sixten special, honestly. You're really back
because
in top 4.
I mean, you're telling the story like someone other than you decided to do any of these things.
Again,
I have no idea how this happened.
Yeah. I wanted to prove a point that this would be a misplay to it would be a misplay to buy this, so I bought it to prove it, and then I screwed myself over. So that's why you shouldn't talk
I
when
sold all my items before my day 1 PvP. I wanted to prove it was a misplay.
This is why you shouldn't play Ball Blaster, and then I proceed to crash out. Yeah, no, for sure. But that was really fun. So beautiful. Goose posted the VOD on YouTube. In the tournament chat in the Bazaar, they also linked the video, his video itself. So you can see Goose try and make sense of my stupid plays. Really entertaining. And again, all of us three, I don't know, Jota, were you also participating in the tournament, or
I was about 2 hours late to the start, so I only had 2 runs.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew I couldn't make it on time, so it was fine.
Yeah. No,
you said both of your 2 runs that you got in just the last hour were 10-win runs, right?
Yes. So sorry. Okay, I thought you meant me, because I spent 2 hours on the first run.
Oh, yeah, you were kind of doing the same thing, huh?
Yes. I wasted 2 hours on a 4-win or 5-win run with Space Laser, and then I just went, full lock-in mode and spent 30 minutes. I didn't second-guess a single decision. 10-1, 10-0. But then, of course, I didn't play with the pressure of actually having a chance of winning. If you're playing, for you, MetallFenix, you were, so close to greatness, and, at that point, you are, you can it's much harder to play when you actually feel like there are stakes, when you just...
thankfully I do pretty well under pressure, but I was still a little bit peeved when I got forted right at the very end.
Yeah, and you also lost to a virus pig or some nonsense like that, which is just so funny to me.
Obsidian Diamond Vial Launcher Mac with the potion cooldown reduction skill, Diamond, at day 11. So
this is a nice segue. So Metal, if people want to watch you lose to a virus pig, where can they find you?
Can do so at twitch.tv/MetallFenix to Elson and F. It is the same as the name on the screen, and you can find me in the description below. In addition to that, I have a YouTube channel by the same name, where I post mostly guides and educational content. I currently have a very extensive Stell overview there, which kind of just goes over conceptually what is everything that this character does. And I'm definitely planning on doing more stuff for Stell, whatever I decide on. And we'll see. Like, all of the other characters have interesting stuff right now, so for the first time in a long time, I'm very stumped in terms of what I want to do next. But we'll see. Maybe I end up badgering Jota with some Mac questions and see if I can de-rust that old.
I was trying to get the inside Mac info this episode so I can play some.
Yeah, and in my case,
asking about some.
In my case,
yeah,
I spent hours advocating for a pulse rifle buff on the behalf of the dually community. Like, I went to bat. Like, everyone in the test server knows that I was like the pulse rifle #1 advocate or shill, and so it made it in. And then I've had like 0 dually runs on prod because I've been so busy with Stell. Like, my favorite item is finally back into its old glory, and the dualies are hailing me as some kind of savior, and the pig players are, I'm a villain. But I haven't even been able to play it myself.
It's gonna be so
Wait, the
fun.
pig players are saying you're a villain for buffing pulse rifle? Is that?
What did you say?
I think that might just be Sixten's headcanon. I don't know.
Okay.
But
which part? The pigs or the dualies?
The pig part saying you're a villain.
No, Rarish, like literally on stream yesterday, Rarish, when he every time he faced like pulse rifle, he was like, Sixten, this is your fault. Like when I was in chat,
okay, that's fair. But
Rarish is like
but that's Rarish specifically. He was saying that when he was playing Stell too.
Yeah, but he hasn't
even
a pig player. Okay,
pig as far as I know. But
yeah.
Okay.
I sometimes use pig player as an insult, the way pig players use dually as an insult. So it goes with territory. Anyway, I'm joking. I like Gooses and Walter. Like,
name do.
Pig is cool. Okay, honestly, my pig Vendetta is gone. I think Pig now is a cool hero. Like, he is cool now, actually. Yeah,
he's definitely cooler than before.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Honestly, Stell might be the new villain. Honestly, like Stell with
Stell is having a little bit of a villain arc.
Yeah, so the Stell players are praying for my downfall with the pulse rifle buff for sure.
And we were wrong, and Stell was the real Nepo baby all along.
Yeah,
we were all like, Sixten, you were like, oh, it's Pig. He's an. What did you say? You have to transfer your hatred from, Stell is a war profiteer. She's not just.
That's true. Dude,
she made a space laser. Like, what? She's like trying to. What do you call it? Like, she's trying to wash. What do you call it in English? Like make it so it seems that she hasn't done these terrible things now.
Whitewash.
Yeah, like whitewash or sports wash or whatever. Like, she's like now trying to contribute, but she has literally created like Death Stars. Yeah,
so, she's mechanic washing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's funny. I was so surprised by how, like, her reveal video. I mean, Max was also like super wild with the dark backstory with his sister, but still, like, they're going hard on the lore with these heroes. Like, they're not just cookie cutter like people. They are actually just that as cool characters. Anyway, I think this probably.
Yeah. A final massive thank you to you, Jota, for showing up for the podcast. It's been a pleasure having you here. The Mac expertise was very well needed, and I definitely might bother you again in the future when I get horrifically lost.
Please do.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, reminder to everyone, check out Jota's stream. It's great. The vibes are always super chill. If you're in the European time zone, you need something to watch in the morning, or if you're in the American time zone and you have a completely crazy sleep schedule or something, go for it. Would recommend. With all that said, as per always, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or via RSS feed for your podcast listening app of choice. We will return next week with another new guest. And in the meantime, I hope that wherever you are, you have a wonderful morning, day, evening, or night, and that hopefully we see you in the next one.